Hello, Secret Keepers. When I wake up in the morning and the semester's super boring and I don't think I'll make my prototype deadline, by the time I grab my loot and I give my beard a look, I'm in class just to see the TA nosedive. It's alright, cause I'm Andy Noetzel. Listen up, students. School is in session, and our teacher today is Andy Noetzel of Game Changing Designs. He is here to school us on school and critique our designs. That and so much more on today's episode of the Mega Moth Studios Super Secret Podcast. Hey, shh. Do not tell anybody about what I just did. Whew. Welcome back to the show, Secret Keepers. I'm your host, Magical Girl in Training, the Joel Watts, joined as always by
Danny. Pleasantly excited to be on an episode with somebody who's not a Joel apologist for once.
And today we're joined by that not a Joel apologist. You just corrected me on this, so let's see if I can get it. Andy Noetzel.
Netzel.
Noetzel's pretzels.
Yeah,
Noetzel. Pretzels. Noetzels.
Noetzel's pretzels.
Andy Noetzel of Andy Noetzel of Game Changing Designs and the co-designer of the new game Inns and Outcasts. How are you doing today, Andy?
Doing great. How are you, man? I'm super excited to be here.
I'm doing it pretty well. My throat's a little scratchy from all that singing I just did. I have a lot of respect for the singers out there who put on a show every night, because I can't even get through 30 seconds without it feeling like I just tore out my throat. And today we are going to be talking to Andy about the College of Game Designs and the School of Hard Knocks in casino blackjack dealing, and how to divide up the loot amongst a bunch of knuckle-headed adventurers in his new game, Inns and Outcasts. But first, as always, we got to get to the question of the week.
Do we?
So, yes, Danny. We got to get to that. What question of the week, as always. It is mandated at this point. So, Danny and I were talking about this, and you know a lot about game making, but we want to know what you know about gamification. So our question today is, what aspects of day-to-day life do you think would be most benefited by gamification?
I think that with gamification specifically, it's something that can be applied kind of like ubiquitously to just about any aspect of your life. Especially I've seen some really good stuff going on in the ADHD task management space. There's a lot of correlation of gamification of task management and turning that into something that's more dopamine driven than just making a bulleted list and checking off the thing. But there's quite a few apps now that take your daily tasks and then ascribe that to a fantasy style quest, and you treat all of your tasks in the day like side quests that get you XP to adult better, basically. And that's a really good one. But I think the sleeper that everyone really could benefit from is getting rid of god awful workplace training videos that are just information dumps and turn them into interactive experiences where you're actually getting something back because you're enacting some sort of gamification, even if it's just a simple goal to get you through the next lesson. That can make a big difference.
Oh yeah, I remember. I forgot. I was working as a front desk agent at a hotel, and the first day they sat me down to learn the system, the computer system, and I forgot if it was video based or what have you, but I remember I just fell asleep pretty much, I was fighting to stay awake, and the way the information came to me did not make sense. I wasn't learning. I'm a hands-on learner, so watching this video was not teaching. How long did you keep that job? How long did I keep it? I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. It was not meant to be. Turns out I'm not meant to be a hotel front desk agent. But I completely agree. If you gamify those sorts of trainings, give somebody a task and then have them do the task in a mock situation, that's going to teach them a lot more than just information dump for 6 hours straight.
Yeah, or even just making it so that you play on curiosity to keep you engaged. The more that you get invested in the material, the more that you get out of it in the end. So whichever tool you're trying to do, if you're doing carrot and stick, if you're doing like a curiosity rabbit hole kind of thing, all methods that help purvey information to a workforce that isn't soul crushing and awful, that I think is a way to definitely improve most aspects of our lives, since most of our lives revolve around work.
Yeah. Unfortunately stated, but true and true nonetheless. Okay, so your answer, your highest answer is game workplace training, and then the secondary answer being like a way of like motivating those who are maybe differently motivated to get through their day and to actually improve on the tasks that they want to set their minds to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that they really, it's the same thing. It's just bringing your workplace gamification into your home life or into your everyday moments. Yeah, like your moment to moment, as opposed to like just while you're doing your 9 to 5. But
Yeah.
things that
No,
just help you engage in the space and not just feel like you're doing a thing because that's what adults are supposed to do or that's what you're told to do.
Yeah, I remember downloading one of those apps. Danny, did you ever download like one of those apps where it would like, you would program in the tasks you want to get done for the day, and then as you complete them, it gives you like experience points and you level up?
I used some sort of habit tracker to great effect until X consumed every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. That we keep going back to that. Like we were, I know, Danny, didn't you say you just looked up pictures of us from like when we first started working on X Secrets of Fortune? And
It
then
was like 10 years ago looking. Like
yeah, like we've
much younger.
aged.
So we look so bad, dude. We look
I
terrible.
mean,
Super.
I think time moves differently
Tired.
when you start down the path of game design.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
Yeah. You go into hyperspace or something like that.
If you want to age 10 years, like design a game and then let Laird play test it a bunch.
Okay, Danny. So you were the one who has suggested this question.
Yeah.
So I was curious, did you have a specific answer you wanted to go into?
I think more people should gamify the psychological well-being of their podcast co-host. Yeah. It shouldn't just be like the kind of thing that just rides. You gotta play with it a little bit.
Okay. Do you
And
have
given the frequency of podcasts out there, that would be a fairly large audience.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been running a pilot program actually.
Oh. Do you have any examples of how to have this psychological? I'm hoping, take care of
I
the
sure do.
well-being of your co-host.
I do have examples.
Excellent! I can't wait to hear them.
Yep.
It
Stay
turns out
tuned,
this
audience.
whole podcast is just a Skinner box, and you didn't realize it.
Yeah. Wait till the rats come out.
I mean, just so you know, audience, when you're recording a podcast, it does look like something from the dystopic future, because I'm like looking down the barrel of a camera with a ring light around it, with 2 lights in my periphery, and I'm just like, I'm not looking at anybody's face. I'm just staring down at the camera. So it does have that weird, like something out of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
What you should do is you should put Danny's face on the camera, like just make it so the camera's coming out of his mouth, and
Yep, there
then
you
you
go.
can have something to like lock on, like it's a trick they used to do with like those cardboard cutouts of celebrities. Like you'd put one up behind your camera, and then you'd talk to, Kevin Costner or whoever you got.
Oh,
There you go.
I didn't know about that. That's a great idea. I was just imagining, like right now, the ring light could have a screen built in on it, but a one-way screen or whatever that I could be looking at y'all's video feed, but then looking through the video feed to the camera.
I feel like you would prefer to just have a mirror.
So
What about you,
so
Joel? What's your
unnecessary,
answer?
but real damage done there. That's damn, you caught me. I mean, like, yeah. So I hadn't really thought about this too long. I almost more like would get on a soapbox about the ways that we should de-gamify a couple of things. Like, I'm not a huge fan of what is it, dating apps. In fact, I just watched this. What is it? Stand-up special by this man named Nathan McIntosh. He's really funny, and his special was called something like "Down with Tech" or something to that effect. I'll look it up here in just a moment. But he basically was saying like we've let the tech nerds like basically bully us into like living like a social life their way. And so that's something that's been kind of getting me. But I think ultimately I would agree with Andy, like the idea of like we should develop our our personal checklist. Like say right now I need to get my passport because eventually Danny and I are going to need to travel for either the game or the podcast
or other
Antarctica.
nefarious purposes. Yeah.
I mean,
or
you
Antarctica.
got that Antarctica trip on the books.
Oh yeah, we're going to Antarctica, and I've got to have my passport ready so I can go freeze to death. And
and then we can reanimate you.
Well, if you take the picture for your passport in Antarctica, no one will ever believe it's you because it'll just be like blue. And they'll be like, what happened?
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Oh, also, it is Nathan McIntosh down with tech, just so you know.
Okay.
But yeah, so I would say like when a task comes at you, just having like having a nice pre-built flow checklist that you just like. I could click on a button on an app. If I had an application, I could click on a button that says I need my passport, and then it would just like give me auto generate a checklist. I guess ChatGPT could perform that task. But I think just like, having like, in video games where you get your mission log at the beginning and it has a checklist for you of the things you need to complete, then that way it's like it kind of preemptively breaks a task down into its subtasks, which is always a great advice to get things done. So I guess I would say that, just have the tech preemptively break down your subtasks for you.
Yeah,
So.
and give you a reason to do them. Like give you extra motivation for that.
Give you
little dopamine kick.
a dancing cat gif.
Yeah.
Or just a variety of cute animal gifs. Every time you check off one of the things, you get a little cute animal gif, and then you get to move on with the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, Danny. So how do you feel been psychologically manipulating me?
Don't worry about it. We'll get to it.
Oh my goodness.
You didn't get the memos? It's okay. Don't worry.
Just
about
keep your score up, dude. Keep your score up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
You got to stay up on those leaderboards, Joel. It's really important.
Well, folks, I'm going to be keeping my score up, but why don't you go ahead and tell us how you like to keep your score up in gamifying your own life? You can leave us a comment here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Just leave a review with your comment on how you gamify your life. And while you're at it, you can subscribe and like the podcast. Danny says for every subscriber we get, Joel will embed himself in a Southern California cannibal nudist colony for 6 months. Per like? Jeez.
It's true. It's true.
No fasting allowed.
Correct. Yeah, you're going to have to eat while you're there.
I'm sure I'll find something to eat, Danny.
Would
I
that
have
make
no
him
doubt.
fasting food?
Andy.
Possible.
What we need Laird's sound
Yeah, you just need a
soundboard.
soundboard of your own. I think that's
Yeah,
the
I
real
need
thing.
I need a
Gotta get
soundboard of my own. Yes, I need the rim shot.
Yeah, you need like KXSOF, morning radio soundboard going.
Coming to you on the ones and the twos. Wow, 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 wow. Air horn, fart noise. Yeah, that'll get the show really. We're going to shoot right up the ranks if we got that soundboard. Trust me, Danny, it's going to be a before and after for sure.
Keep it up, bro. You're at -4.
I'm sure just mentioned he said fart, he said soundboard. I'm just losing points as well. Before I lose any more points, let's go ahead and jump into our interview today. Andy, thank you so much, of course, for joining us. As always, we love having guests on to tell us about their experience with games and game design. So why don't we start like we always like to and ask you your origin story as a game designer? And the first question I love to ask is, did you grow up in a gaming household?
Yeah, I definitely grew up in a gaming household. I'm actually like third generation gaming household.
Oh wow.
My grandparents did the whole like bridge social thing. So much so that when my dad's side of the family would ever get together, they would play bridge for like 6 to 8 hours in a clip. Like that's just what they did. And it was really cool because I was around games like before I could do anything else. I was exposed to games. Like we would have these. We would even have like our small immediate family unit did a little board game night. We got some non-standard board games like early on in the 90s. Like we did have Monopoly, but we also had like Ready Set Spaghetti and some other just like oddball games that were kind of gimmicky, but it was the 90s, so every board game was kind of gimmicky.
I always remember Don't Wake Daddy for some reason.
Yep. We didn't have that one, but it was definitely on like the can we get this at some point? Because little kids will ask for anything that's got a commercial.
Yeah.
Do you think you could market a game called Don't Wake Daddy anymore? Do you feel like that's like a little too
I
charged?
think you would market it to a very different audience. I think if you can have Dream Daddy, you could also have Don't Wake Daddy.
Or Do Wake Daddy.
Yeah.
I think you would just have different undertones and would be a different marketed
Yeah, it'd be
graphic.
sold for bachelorette parties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. So we have wait, you mentioned something spaghetti?
Oh yeah, Ready Set Spaghetti.
Ready Set Spaghetti. How did that play?
So what's her name? Board Gaming Grandma on TikTok has a really great breakdown video of this. But everybody has a little plastic dish and that has like a fork that has string attached to it. And so you'd roll out the string. Everybody would jumble up the string in the middle as much as possible. You drop it onto the middle of the board, and the board has a bunch of these little peg holes that you'd put these little plastic pegs that have ingredients on them, and that would like get interlocked with this closed loop that was your one spaghetti strand. And every turn you would roll a die, pick a topping, and then you'd turn your fork to tighten your line. And the goal is to be the first person to get their line back to them in its entirety. So
Sounds cool.
It was very clever for like a little introductory board game, but it has a little bit of choice because as long as there's more than one ingredient out, or if you roll to pick any ingredient, you always got to try and pick the thing that would be the most gain you could get for your string to get it back, and then after that it turns into a dexterity game to see who can like crank their little fork the fastest.
I want spaghetti for dinner now.
There you go.
Like I'm actually really craving it now.
Yeah, that sounds really good. It's been too long since I've had Italian food. Much more like pretty much every time I go out to get food, I end up getting Tex-Mex.
All right.
Okay. So some other games that you might have had. I just want to run through a couple that that I remember from my youth that either I had or didn't. Did you have?
I had a really wacky one called El Dorado, and it's so hard to find because there are other games named El Dorado that have come out since. But it had two little paper like you built this like actual scale, like a balance scale. Ooh, and you would put plastic mining tools on one side and gold nuggets on the other one to even out to determine how much gold you would get when you found like a gold vein as you moved around the board. And then at the end of the game, you would weigh your gold versus everyone else's, and so these little scales would determine who's the winner, like pretty visually. But
I like that.
Yeah, it was cool as heck, but my dad hated setting it up for us because the scales were punch board. Like it was all just chipboard and string, and it's just like this thing would get tangled up in the box and just be like it was a treat for him to set it up for us because we were my brother's younger than me by a couple years, so I'd be like 6 or 7, so my brother was like less than that, and his attention span just was like 100% not into it if it wasn't ready when we were going to start playing. And
do you just have the one sibling, just one brother?
Yeah, just one brother. Yep.
And what does he do?
He went to film school. Actually, he has a film background, so
that's cool.
Like I think you guys would absolutely hit it off. At the very least, you'd have a bunch of like wars, like trench stories,
Yeah.
Like, but he was out in LA and did a lot. He was a grip for a little bit, and then since then he's moved back to Peoria, and now he just kind of helps out with my folks and makes sure that they're comfortable, and does
That's
a lot
awesome.
of the groundskeeping and housekeeping and stuff. So
okay.
Love
Yeah, I'm sure there's some more stories between us that could be a fun little side tangent episode, or maybe just invite him out to Tuesday Night X and we could just chit chat in the bonfire.
He's not as much a gamer.
Yeah.
But I think at some point, if you're ever in my neck of the woods, I'll absolutely have you guys.
Well, that brings up a question. He's not that much of a gamer. What game would you be like? Okay, I want to play a game, and I want my brother to play with me. Did you have a game that's like, I know he'll say yes to this one?
Well, he'll say yes to playing games.
Okay.
But he doesn't like he's not going to be like, oh, let's play a game as his go-to activity.
I see what you're saying.
He'll courteously allow me. Yeah, give him the opportunity to watch a movie. He'll have a laundry list of recommendations.
Oh, we are looking to start a movie review podcast down the line.
Okay, I'll let him know.
Nice.
His knowledge of movies is probably bigger than my knowledge of games. Like if I had to
Oh.
give him an A to B.
Well, let's face it though. It's like there's a trade-off there, but it's usually a lot cheaper and less time investment to watch a movie, to say you have a movie under your belt, than to learn a game.
It's true, but you get a lot more replayability out of a game than you do out of a movie.
100%. Yeah. Like the amount of movies that are meant to be watched more than once is probably 10% of all movies made.
I think it's easier to make games than movies also.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
certainly
not
a shorter process. Like,
yeah, and that's not to trivialize making games, because making games is challenging, but I think it's just, maybe it's not that it's easier, but it's just so much riskier to make movies because they're so expensive and so time consuming.
Well,
and you destroy so many things in the process.
if you want to talk video game development's about as complex as making a movie. And
I can believe that.
It's one of those things where it's like the game industry is bigger than the film and what is it? It's bigger than film and I can't remember. It's bigger than like the other two next forms of like popular media combined, but the level of complexity that goes into it's absurd. Like just from how many hands have to be involved into it is nuts. So like the budgets are absurd.
Yeah, producing something with like a significant budget is extremely stressful.
Yes. Heck, producing something without a significant budget is also stressful.
Yeah.
But for very different reasons.
Danny, there's a reason we look 10 years older.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I should deduct a point for that, though.
All right. So to go back to the origin story aspect of the podcast. Now, you got into a wider world of gaming than most kids did, like with being from a gaming household. You had the classics with Bridge, but then you had the oddballs with Ready, Set, Spaghetti. And El Dorado. Was there a point where you felt like maybe instead of it being like when you were introduced to a wider world of gaming, was there a point where you felt like you had like advanced to being, your adolescence of gaming, like, or your, from boyhood to manhood? Like, was there like, this is what changed to my taste, or this is how I changed but still remained a gamer?
Oh, for sure. When I was in my adolescence, that's when I picked up CCGs. Like I started with Magic the Gathering because in 5th grade, everyone had, like, there was a small little sect of Magic players that all got together at the table and was like, I want to see what they're doing. And I saw a crawl worm. I was like, that's the coolest art I've ever seen. I want to play this game. How do I play? And then, of course, they had to be gatekeepy about it because they're like, go learn on your own. So I did. And I played Magic for a little bit. I started in Ice Age and I wrapped up in Weatherlight. So not a super long stint, but, when you're buying your own cards. And then after that, I just started chasing CCG after CCG. I was a CCG player long into high school. And like that's when I started doing conventions because we'd go to the conventions for the card game tournaments. And after it took me a while to get back around to board games. In fact, like the only reason that I kind of got back into board games was because one of the guys that was part of our CCG pod, he moved to Champaign for school, so we would go up to visit him and hang out at the local game store there. And he worked at the local game store for store credit, so he would just have oodles and oodles of store credit. He's like, I'm not just going to buy booster boxes with all this stuff. So he started buying board games, and then that kind of brought me around to the board game side of things, and I kind of fell in love with it. I was like, I need a break from CCGs too, so this is a good time to hang out in the board game space. And that's where I stuck for a long time. And then after that, while I was in college, I eventually like left my university due to medical reasons and was trying to find what to do. And after a while, I went back to school for game design, specifically to learn how to make board games and do things like app conversion was kind of like my goal for that program.
Okay. So we do want to get into your time in college, but I did want to go back to your CCG. So, Ice Age to Weatherlight in terms of Magic the Gathering. I mean, that, it's a span of a few years. I remember, those both predate me when I was playing Magic. I started in, seriously playing in Odyssey. So that was, quite a few years later. But I was just curious. I know that you got into Legend of the Five Rings.
Yeah, right? that was one that we played pretty seriously. That was so L5R. We had a little pod again. In L5R, you pick basically it's based around the Warring States era in Japanese history with a fantasy bent on it. So you
So
had
like
like
how
a family that you ascribed yourself to. So I picked the Unicorn Clan. That was like my color, like, you know, your magic color. That's kind of what the closest equivalent is. But
okay.
so that's what I played for quite a while. Then after I did a couple tournaments on that scene, and like the highest I ever got was I placed top 16 in a qualifier for like 200 people. That had like 200 people there. But I mean,
awesome.
I think most of that was dumb luck at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been like a really great competitive player.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the highest I ever got was like I almost got to a qualifier maybe.
I gotcha. And
But
was it Legend of the Five Rings that like, you know, Siren songed you away from Magic, or did they
oh,
overlap?
I got burned out on Magic. But
Okay.
L5R really appealed to me because it's got at all times you have to worry about 4 different win conditions.
Uh huh.
So like you can win through military victory, you can win through somebody playing attaining enlightenment. Somebody can literally become so honorable that you can't go up against them anymore, or you could get dishonored so much that you actually, you know, just were thematically you had to commit seppuku, but that wasn't actually a feature of the game. But you know, like, so there was these 4 victory conditions you always had to balance in your deck, and you had to figure out what you wanted to do. My strategy was usually a combination of honor or military.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when I was playing that, one of the one of the instances that really broke L5R is they made enlightened victories too easy at one point, to the point
Oh.
there was a deck called it was the abbreviation was called Feta 5, and that was finding the harmony enlightenment through air, masters of the 5, and you could essentially win in like 5 turns, every turn pulling out one of the rings of enlightenment and win via enlightenment instantaneously. It was a bad time in
Okay.
the history.
So
Oh wow.
I'm sure that taught you a little bit about game design. I mean, I know that this is a big important game
Yeah.
for you. Have you taken, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but have you taken
Yeah.
any lessons from L5R into your own game
Sure.
design, especially the win conditions and things like that?
I think I definitely fell in love with the idea of having multiple victory conditions, like
Uh huh.
giving people a variety of options to pursue and letting people's play style be the defining element of their game experience is like something that's kind of codified into this concept of user-centered design, and I think that really helped me grok the concept of user-centered design, and kind of adopt it into what I do a lot more. So like the language didn't exist at the time, but like that's definitely what helped me get there.
Okay.
And then, you know, I also played like a whole bunch of other CCGs, and some of them were like never even like really came to like full release. So
So
it's
here,
yeah.
so here's a question. What was the first time that you can recall sitting down to play a game and thinking about it in terms of game design? Like, do you have any memories of saying, huh?
I do. So after I left my university program at U of
Okay.
I had to, you know, get a job, and I ended up working third shift in a quality control lab doing like just cleaning. Like that's all I was doing. I was a lab technician, but they would also have me do tests. But it was, you know, from my shift started at 11 p.m. and it would end at 6 a.m. So, you know, nothing's happening. Not many samples are coming in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time to like, you know, I'd clean everything, but then there was a lot of time to just like wait. So during that time, all I would do is sit and think about house rules for different games. So like it would be sometimes I'd be thinking about TTRPG stuff. Sometimes I'd be sitting there thinking like, well, I don't like Catan at the moment, so what can I do to make Catan better for a house rule? And after a while, I was just like, you know, honestly, if I'm gonna change a game with 30 house rules, why don't I just make a different game? And that's when I started to like really like think about game design as a as a viable hobby.
Yeah.
Like But I didn't get the courage to seek it out as a career until I encountered a video on extra credits called "So You Want to Be a Game Designer," and that was a really powerful video. That it's funny because it's not encouraging. Like they're like, if you want to be a game designer because of these factors, think about something else. But like afterwards, I got through like the checklist of things. I'm like, these are things that I want to pursue more. And I found out that like all the things that I truly love to do and the ways that I like to apply the skills that I've acquired are in the field of game design. So that's when I was like, yeah, game design, 100%.
Well, so it's pretty, I don't want to say late in life, but you're going into you've already tried college once, and then you have the epiphany that you actually do want to pursue game design. And also shout out to Extra Credits. I'm pretty sure I saw that video too, like well over a decade ago.
Yeah,
and
it's an oldie.
I watched a lot of their videos for a long time, and that probably should have clued me in that I should have been pursuing this, but I was so enamored with the idea of doing like something movie making wise, I couldn't think of anything else, to the detriment of my life probably at this point. But so I'm assuming shortly after that is when you decided to go to school for game design. Am I correct in that?
Not at all. Because when I came back from school, I was pretty disheartened, and I was I was kind of at a low point.
Okay.
And I had tried several times to like find a partner and really like improve my life, and in the process, when I came back home from U of I, that's when I met my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time. Fair enough, but
it usually starts out the beginning of a relationship. You don't start.
Well, it wasn't like an arranged thing.
Yeah.
It was a more organic.
Least,
actually, she got a
here
ping
in
on
America.
a website. Yeah, we both signed up for like this little like nerdy chat for like locals, and she got a ping that I was coming back to that area, and she's like, I know this guy, and it's because I went to the same junior college that she was, but that she was at, and I actually sat in on her conversational Japanese course because I was getting private tutoring lessons from the teacher, and she wanted me there to practice. So she like recognized me, reached out to me, and then we started chatting. I had her over to do some board game nights, and we had a blast, and we've been having a blast for like the last 14 years.
Oh, nice.
Congratulations.
Did you say at U of I what you initially were studying?
Oh, no. My original degree program was East Asian Languages and Cultures with a focus on Japanese language and culture.
Nice. What made you want to do that?
Well, I wanted to learn more about Japan and Japanese culture. I'm a big like buff of stories, so
yeah,
I really love Japanese mythology. It's got a lot of unique elements to it because of their mixture, like between the different interactions between Korea and China, and their own insular like traditions. Like they have a very unique storytelling method, and I've kind of fallen in love with that. And anime also helped. Like I'm not gonna lie, I definitely watched a lot of anime. But
do you still watch anime?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm obsessed with animation as a genre, and anime pushes a lot of boundaries that I really like. But I'm also like deeply obsessed with independent animation. Like American animation is not dead or undersold. There's a lot left in that space, and there's several that I'm like following like intently right now. Like please let this show take off. But when I was my goal was to learn Japanese as a language, and then the plan was to go overseas in Japan and act as a corporate liaison, basically telling Americans, here's what you can do to not offend the locals. Like, here's how to behave. Like, because Japanese culture has a lot of mannerisms that you have to learn. That it's, if you're doing business, it's not something you're necessarily going to put energy into. But like having someone that's there to be like, not only doing like translation, but also doing like the cultural like smoothing. Yeah. That was the plan. And if that didn't work, I was going to maybe do like tour guiding. But even then, I was like, I would love to go to Japan and pitch games to Japanese companies.
Have you been?
Yeah, I did a 1 month foreign exchange program.
Wow.
I wound up in Hokkaido, which was super fun. I definitely recommend. Like we went around early May, and it was really cool because I got to see, even though it's super late in the year, I got to see like the cherry blossoms happen in Hokkaido, which is really, really beautiful. And they also just get everywhere in like a good way, but it's also just like by the end of the cherry blossoms, I'm pretty sure people are like, cool, I'm glad these aren't here for, like ever. Cause it's like a second fall because of how much they just go
shed
everywhere. Yeah.
It's sort of like snow at a place that snows frequently,
Yeah,
it's like
and-
me as a Texan, I'm like, oh, snow, it's so beautiful. But if you live around it, it's like, oh no, the snow.
You guys might not like Hokkaido.
Why?
It's where they have like the winter festival, because it is very close to the Arctic Circle.
So you're.
It's
This
it's
is the
cold.
place that we would go to prepare to go to Antarctica.
yeah, exactly.
Is that where those monkeys that are in the hot springs are?
I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. The mountains of Hokkaido are like permanently snow-capped in some spots. So like, one of the cool things we saw there was a snowflake museum because
Oh, wow.
they have like the perfect humidity year-round to get these unique crystalline like snowflakes that are like perfect in shape. Like what a little kid would draw is what they can get for like actually falling out of the sky.
That's amazing.
So,
Wow.
but it was a very nice experience, and I definitely recommend foreign exchange to anybody who can get the opportunity, because getting outside of America is a really important thing to do. Like at minimum, get to Canada or Mexico. Like get out of America for like a bit and just see how the rest of the world works. But Japan was great.
Are you a
When
fan
did
of the
you-
cuisine? Oh, go ahead, Joel.
I was just going to ask, when did you take this trip? Like, how long ago was
That
this?
was May of 2005.
Okay, so this was
it's been a hot
during your schooling or in between the two times.
So
of
it
school?
was after junior college and before official college. Like the idea was, I wanted to make sure that if I was going to go study Japanese language and culture for 4 years, that I actually wanted to do that. And so the best way to do that is to go to the country and make sure that like hey, you're a permanent outsider and you're a very obvious outsider. So like if you want to do this, just know that you're going to be the fly in the ointment in every room. That you're in.
Did you get to go to a 7-Eleven while you were there?
Yeah, dude, the konbenis are the best, dude. Like I love the convenience stores in Japan. Yeah, mainly because it's one of the few places you can go to get food that you're familiar with. It's a good little safe haven. But I will say the best situation that ever happened there is I thought for sure I was getting a cheese Danish because I was being lazy and I wasn't reading the wrapper and I read it and I'm like that doesn't make sense. So I like this is clearly a cheese Danish and I got it and I ate it and it very much wasn't. It was what was called. It was called corn and mayonnaise bread, and it was
That is
which is
uniquely
a very
targeted towards-
popular flavor. It's a very popular flavor combination in Japan. Like they have it on pizza.
I'm not going to say I wouldn't eat that flavor combination, but if I'm about to have a cheese Danish, I think, and that's what enters my mouth, I think I might retch.
I will say it was a bit of a shock, but at the same time, like I was just like, oh no. Well, I spent the money on it, so like you just kind of like go through it, and you're like, well, here we go, off to class.
And what about if you had to go back and only eat ramen or sushi while you were there?
Well, I don't like fish. I mean, the only sushi I'll eat are I like inari sushi. I'm okay with kappa sushi, but I'm not huge on the seaweed. But inari sushi is the stuff that comes in it looks like a little pouch, like a little brown pouch. That's soybean curd that's been like fried, and then they put sushi rice inside of it, and it's delicious. Plus, inari sushi is named after Inari, the fox god, and I'm like, hey, that's super cool. Because foxes apparently love tofu.
Is that true?
I mean, that's what their culture is based around. So I'm not gonna knock it.
Joel,
or at least
is that
that's what the
true?
mythology.
What, foxes liking tofu?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, love it. Why
heard
not?
it here
It's just
first.
it's out there. Yes.
What about ramen though? Are you a big ramen guy?
Dude, ramen's so good. But if I really got to pick, I'd pick udon every time.
Oh, I love udon. Nabayaki udon's like one of my absolute favorites. I get it.
Yeah. Well,
Remind me, what is udon?
udon is the
Thicker
thick
noodles.
buckwheat noodle, as opposed to the thinner soba noodle. It's like it's almost like an angel hair pasta, but it's a different flour. I think it's rice flour. Could be wrong.
The udon, I think udon is. Yeah.
Udon's buckwheat, 100%.
Oh, udon's buckwheat. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do like udon, then Hokkaido is the place to go because that's what they're famous for. Is their udon.
Then we're going.
Yep.
We're going. Plus, any place that's cold, I think, is a good place for Joel to practice being naked.
Yeah. And
Wait,
if you guys
what?
I was gonna say if you like beer, Sapporo is where the Sapporo beer comes from, and that's the capital of Hokkaido.
Can confirm Joel likes beer.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, I know that every beer is better if you get it from where it's from. Like,
sure.
like I've always heard Guinness. It's okay in America, but if you get Guinness from Ireland, it is it's top notch. So I'm sure Sapporo is the same. It's like Sapporo's good here. I mean,
more importantly, it's the stuff that you pair it with, which is good company and lots of Genghis Khan, which is like fried lamb with vegetables. It's very good.
Now I'm hungry. we really made a mistake recording so close to dinner time. I ate before we started, and now it's starting to be like, no, but you got to eat again, Joel. All right, well, let's just go ahead and look at just to skip ahead a little bit. You have this, what would you call it? You have this dark night of the soul where between going to college the first time for Japanese and Asian, was it culture? Yeah, Asian culture. And then you drop out of school, but then you eventually do go back to study game design. So, if there's anything to bridge that time to you going into school, that's great. But then also, we just want to know what it's like to go to school to learn how to design games and what you learned there. So, why don't you get us caught up to that point?
Yeah, so in my journey going back to school, I actually got kind of a little preliminary run because Jen, my wife, also went back to school before I did. So that was kind of like why there was a 9-year gap from when I left school and went back to it, and 4 of that was getting Jen through her jewelry and metalwork degree. So I got to spend a lot of time helping her write her academic papers because I was a recovering English major.
Putting it back on the sauce there, back on the thesaurus.
Right. And on top of that, just kind of being adjacent to academic life kind of gave me a runner up to it. But then once she graduated, I'm like, cool, when you find a job, which I'm going to heavily insist you do right now, I'm going back to school and going back. It's funny because when I applied to go to my university, which was Bradley University, I also applied to go start working through dealer's school, which is in order to deal blackjack at the local casino, they have a 1-month training program that you have to do ahead of time. So I signed up for that, and I put in my admission letter to Bradley at the same time. And the second day that I started actually doing the dealer school, I got my acceptance letter to Bradley. I'm like, this is going to be really interesting because now I'm going to have to do this and this at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And that got intense because the game design program, so the game course that I went through was heavily geared towards video game design. That's really what it's about. And most game design courses only look at analog as kind of like a stepping stone. It's rare. No one's going to ever encourage you to do 4 years of study to do board games because the barrier of entry just doesn't exist. Yeah. But the barrier of entry to video games is massive. So that's where the learning really focuses. And in our curriculum, they start off with a boot camp class, which is you have to learn how to animate, you have to learn how to make a game in an engine, and that's all in one semester. So they're not expecting it to be good, but they're gonna make sure that all the animators know how game design works, and all the game design students know how animation works. So that way, when you ask somebody to do something for you, you understand what cruelty you're inflicting on them in the process.
Very wise.
And it also taught us a lot of the tools for how to use multimedia. That's where I started learning how to do Photoshop and Illustrator. And then moving on from when you get past that boot camp class, because a lot of people go like, I want to study game design because I want to play video games. It's like, no, that's not this.
No.
You'll do like a little of that, but what you do is going to like take all the fun out of playing that video game. Like you're going to be studying it like it's like a terminal patient, and you're trying to like reverse engineer all the bits out of it. Like it's not playing for fun. It's playing for study. And
because almost every video game that you get a hold of that makes it to the finish line is probably put together a little bit by duct tape and bubble gum.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, especially if it comes from Bethesda.
Yes. As of last week, I mentioned that I did not play Skyrim, and I will just say I do have issue with Bethesda. So, yeah, it's like
I love Bethesda though. Like they may put out a buggy mess, but it's charming, and
Joel's choking on his tongue.
That's okay. We can disagree. But I'm a Fallout lover, so they sold me with post-apocalyptic wasteland that I get to wander around with a dog. Like what world would that not appeal to somebody?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they definitely like fit in, especially the Fallout games. They fit into a universe that you just want to exist in. And I'm watching the Fallout TV show right now, and I'm very happy with it. It's making me consider if they re-release Fallout 3 or New Vegas, I'll definitely play those, and I might just pick up Fallout 4 and play it all the way through.
Dude, just play New Vegas right now. Don't worry about 4. New Vegas was honestly one of the best titles they've ever put out.
Oh, I love New Vegas. I've played through New Vegas before. I just was kind of hoping to wait for a re-release or like something with some quality of life upgrades. But I could just go back and play that too.
There's tons of mods for it though, so there's already quality of life updates there that just aren't made by Bethesda. So they're going to work.
That's true. Oh,
but
hear that, Todd? Hear that, Todd?
No, I think Bethesda does really good work, and where they put their energy is in enchanting these spaces with really, really eloquent like narrative design and world building, and it's untouchable in that regard.
It's very much a Wizard of Oz situation. You're in a wonderful amusement park. Just don't go poking your head behind the curtains.
It's truth.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So you went through. So you got into school and you did that boot camp that basically made it to where it's like you're going to touch every aspect of game design, so that way you understand it in the first semester. And then I guess after that y'all started going in and focusing in.
The next class that you immediately go into is board game and tabletop game design, and that was like my favorite class ever. And that's when they teach you like, here's the word scope. You're not going to understand it. We're going to give you enough rope that you can hang yourself with it, because you're going to overscope everything you do from now on.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's all programming and game engine work and collaboration and teams in the various courses that just get tougher and tougher. And so like, I'm not a good programmer and I'm not a great artist, but artists were in extremely short demand for my cohort because they didn't have a game art program at the time. So like you just had to be lucky that somebody in the class wanted to do game art.
Oh, wow.
And so like I switched tracks a little bit and started focusing on doing like art. I learned how to animate a little bit, and then like for my senior year I was a producer, so I was learning about production management, time management, budget management, how to basically organize cats. And the answer is you don't, but you create the boxes that you think the cats will occupy
and fill it with litter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just throw out the box, Joel.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that like production, that seems to be, if you're not good at programming and you're not good at art, that might be where you want to go to, because you can still control a lot of the game design aspects from the Excel spreadsheets that you use to like make plans.
And quality assurance, like being a good game tester is its own amazing skill set. You guys can attest to this. Like Laird has changed your game permanently, like 100%. And you don't get that without someone who's able to describe issues and find out how deep they go and change things like wording and see what really impacts, like where the impact is hitting, and giving you that feedback, so you're not like sifting forever trying to find the one little like error. So like a good QA person is worth their weight in gold, and they are often left in the dust, which is a shame, because it's so important. It's such an important part. But also sound design. Like sound design, as critical it is for film, sound design can change a game 100%. And really good sound design can be its own mechanic. Even in the board game space, look at Sirens, like from Envyborn. Like the fact that they have an app that makes music based on your board game decisions, that's cool as heck. Who doesn't want that? Like,
I love that.
So
that definitely was what got me like hooked. I was like, whoa, that is a very cool feature. And then like every single game is going to have a different permutation. That's very neat.
Yeah. So like the thing that I love about game design is that there is no discipline that game design isn't impacted by. Like I don't care if your thing is scrubbing floors, there's somewhere in game design that will matter. Like it just takes from all walks of life, because what you're really doing is designing experiences, and those experiences only exist because we have contextual experience in the real world that we then bring into these elaborate games that we make.
This is a great time for me to ask the question I wanted to ask, and I've asked you this offline, but I think it'd be good to ask on the podcast. How do you define what a game is?
So at its absolute core, my definition of a game is an experience that you can interact with in a meaningful way.
Okay.
Now that's just like if you have to break it down to the smallest piece, because like obviously that's like saying that a square is a square, but a rectangle is also a square. You know, like not all squares are rectangles, but all rectangles are squares, kind of thing. No, I got that reversed.
But we get
either way.
We know where you're going.
But like that's like the minimum thing that you have to define, and like the way that games define the level of interaction is through rules, and rules are mechanics, and you can expand that out and extrapolate that into a bunch of different elements, but at its core a game is an experience that is interactive in a meaningful way. And ideally, like what game designers are going for is an experience that they can repeat and share without being in that space, like like directly. But that changes, of course.
When you say meaningful, what do you mean in this context? What gives interaction meaning from your perspective?
Well, the decision of the player has to change the outcome in some way, shape, or form. Because if it doesn't change the outcome, if there's only one outcome, that's less of a game and more of a puzzle. Because puzzles are basically questions with one answer, but the answer is obfuscated with a bunch of twists and turns. Whereas with a game, even if it's a matter of like the sequence in which you choose to progress to interact with it, that should create some sort of permutation of how you get through the experience in one shape or form.
That's very interesting. I think we encountered that with X Seekers of Fortune when we made the very first iteration of the game. We played it, but the lack of player agency made it feel like it wasn't a game. It felt like something we were just like kind of watching happen in front of us.
Right.
And so that agency is definitely, that resonates.
Like the first question we're always asked is Candyland a game?
Is it?
It isn't. It actually is not, because there's no agency. You do not have any control over the thing. The game basically plays itself. It's just flip over a card. Now you can there's a really funny game out there called Run for Your Life Candyman, and it is a head-to-head battler where they took Candyland and turned it into a melee combat game. Ooh. And all they did is added one rule, and that's you get to choose if you go to the next or the previous color of the card that you flipped.
What?
And so, like, instead of going forward, you can choose to go backwards on the track. Yeah. And if you overlap somebody else's piece in the process, you have a fight. And you literally break off the gingerbread man's, like, arm or leg or whatever. Like, you have a fight that resolves by flipping over the little colored squares. And as long as you get the result that you want, you you either hit them or you miss them based on what you've pulled. So
Okay.
it's a neat game. I definitely recommend looking at it. But the other thing is, like, the simplest thing you can do to turn Candyland into a game is draw 2 cards and pick one. That agency changes your game experience dramatically. However, that doesn't really make for a good game because most of the choices you're going to get in that situation are obvious choices. You're not really making deep, meaningful choices. So there's still work to be done.
So it goes beyond
Candyland wasn't-
agency.
Yeah, but Candyland wasn't meant to be a game. Candyland was meant to be a distraction. Because when kids had polio, they'd be sitting in these iron lungs and they could not do anything or move or anything. So the guy who designed Candyland literally painted it on ceilings so that kids could follow it with their eyes while they had something to look at.
Oh, wow. No
Yeah.
idea.
I did not know that. I would have said that Candyland is meant to be like I might be using a term that's beyond me, but a simulacrum of a game that is meant to, introduce the concept of what a game looks like to children, but they don't actually have to dig into it. And that there's many examples of games moving forward, like Go Fish and everything like that is like almost like a training ground for you to actually play real games, but deeper, more strategic games. Like you have to be introduced to the concepts and the mechanisms and the shape of the game before you can actually engage with a real deep game.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely what it became as a cultural touchstone. Like, I played Candyland as a little kid. Most people I know have played some iteration of Candyland. It's still being sold at Target. So, it has a value. And I think the value that it has is that it's something you can put in front of a small child and they will have a blast with it, even though they don't care if it's a game or not.
Yes.
And
it'll introduce them to the concept of a game.
As much as I love being a game designer, like, the most prolific game designers are children. Kids will make games in a heartbeat. Whether or not they make any sense doesn't matter. They will play them and they will have a blast doing them most of the time. So
then you can get into the deeper reason that we have games and culture in general. But the idea of some sort of strange preparation for adult life or for the challenges of life. But that's a conversation for a different podcast because we're already an hour in and we still got a lot to go over. I know it goes by fast, doesn't it, Andy? I guess so. To wrap up your schooling with game design, and this is the overall, like, how did you feel about going to school for game design, and I guess would you recommend it to other people?
I would recommend anyone who seriously wants to make video games for a living. It is useful for a lot of things to go through that program. At least the program that I went to. If anything, the program that I went through has a very unique student culture where everybody cares about everybody else. I've never been in a degree program where like, when somebody gets an award in a class, like, the entire class cheers happily for that person. It's not about bitterness or rivalry or anything like that. You're just excited that somebody survived, basically. And the networking and possibilities you get out of that program, like, in general, are going to put you leaps and bounds ahead of just trying to claw your way in without some sort of training. I do think you can do it on your own. I don't think you need to go to school. There's several, like, learning sites that are pretty good. GameDev.tv is pretty solid. If you watch Humble Bundle, they've released a ton of books about game design all the time for super cheap. But I think that having an environment where it's okay to fail is one of the most crucial things. Like, it's the best thing you can get out of a university program, because you're going to make 5 or 6 games during that 4-year period. They're gonna suck noodles. They're not gonna be masterpieces, and that's okay. And you learn so much from that, because of the accelerated format, you learn a lot more in a shorter amount of time, and you learn to fail faster, which is another really core tenet to working in video games. Is like, we need to be able to test this and discard it as quick as possible so that we're not wasting our time and energy on it beyond the amount of time that it needs to do it.
Yeah. it's training, the training grounds, and like you said, like
Yeah.
the freedom to fail. That's super huge, and just
No.
getting to the end and be like, well, you guys tried, and we're going to give you a passing grade, but everybody here knows this isn't. Nobody's going to play this.
What this podcast is all about: the freedom to fail.
Yeah. I will also say that big caveat: game design school will not guarantee you a job in the game industry at all. At all.
Hey.
Just ignore that exists.
Yes.
Know that the training you're getting is for your benefit and not to give you it's not here's a degree, insert job here.
And especially not going to get you to the
300 applications for work in the game design space, and I don't even get callbacks. And I know many people in my cohort who've had similar stories, but it's you learn to find your way in, or you just learn to make your own path, which is why we did this. That's where this is coming from.
Yeah, no. What was I just about to say there? I mean, just like very much like the film industry or film school was of the previous generation, game design school is, it's wonderful, but you have to do so much more outside of the school itself. It's not just about getting the grades, but it's probably about like building connections, socializing, and building your social net for outside of school.
And honestly, internships are a huge deal in the game design space because it's a surprisingly small world once you get in there. Like everybody kind of knows everybody to an extent. There's no 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. It's like 3 degrees to any game
inspector.
exec. Yeah, exactly. It's you will know, people will know you before they know you because they will have asked about you, and your work is what carries you, and the way that you treat people is what carries you. So like getting known in that space is really important as a student, and that's where the internships are like super super helpful.
I definitely should have done some internships while I was in school. That I was very neglectful of those. So you said it yourself. I mean, there's a big difference between going to school for game design and working in the game industry. So I did want to ask you about working in the game industry, and let's start at the. I'm sure that there's a lowly place that you can go and to start out with, but I can't imagine that where you started was not but a few notches higher. What was it like dealing blackjack at a casino?
Oh, well, that actually has nothing to do with the game design industry. That's really a service job. That's dealing blackjack is customer service. That's all it is. And it's customer service with a very specific ritual attached to every single thing that you do. And you have cameras and people pointed at you all the time that are 100% watching every square inch of movement that you're doing to make sure that you are not doing anything untoward, and that you're not doing anything that will result in money going where it's not supposed to go in any way, shape, or form. Because money's on the table, it's like, even if it's like $1.50 bet, it is treated like every bet is, $400,000. Like it doesn't matter what mistakes you make. You're not allowed to fix your mistakes, and you have to self-report every mistake you make.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Any crazy casino stories?
Oh yeah. I watched, like, one of my earlier times, I was sitting at I was dealing blackjack, and I watched a guy win a lot, like, probably racked up maybe 1,500, and his friend was right there with them until they broke pace, and the guy started getting really crappy hands, and he started losing. So I watched one guy walk up to 1,500, and he's like, I'm walking, I'm like, dude, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. Because the one thing that everybody wants is for people to win. The casino wants you to win. I want you to win because tipping is a big thing. And if you're losing, you're not going to tip. Nope. Well, you're supposed to. Like, you're supposed to save like $5 for the dealer when you're done. But if you've gotten your butt beat, odds are you're not really feeling too generous. Yeah. And it didn't really matter like where I was working because tips were shared. So... But I mean, you still want to earn as much as you can to, so everybody gets a bump. Like, the money was good. Like, I could earn upwards of $20 a night if things were hot. But, like, per hour, it broke down to $20 an hour. But I was actually getting paid, like, somewhere a ballpark of, like, $3-4 an hour. So it's just like working tables at a restaurant. Except people get way more angry.
I bet.
You don't say. I mean, like,
But-
you think people get angry about food? Wait till you mess with their money.
Yeah, I watched this guy go from being up like the same like 1,500 to down to 0, and then rebuy in trying to chase his money. And I was like, my guy, I was feeling like, dude, I cannot tell you what to do. I can't tell you that you should walk away. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Like, you know, like, please don't do anything that's, you know, gonna, you know, cause you distress. And
How do you signal that? It's casually, like in that environment.
that's
or
kind of what I say. Is like,
separately?
dude, I can't tell you what to do, but like, just please, like, please understand that, like,
Anything that follows the words,
Yeah.
I can't tell you what not to do. Everything that follows that is like my strongest suggestion of what I would do if I were you right now. Like, I'm looking at your life from the third person. I have
because
objectivity.
the guy that was up was just like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm walking with this, and he literally pointed at his friend. He's like, you should walk too, and I was like, that's really good. Like, that is a sound thing to say to your buddy there, and like, that's all I said. Like, that's all I could say, but like.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of painful because you don't really want to watch people, you know, eat it at your table because you know what's coming. Like, you know, it's not going to be pleasant. And it's just it's a bummer too, because then it's like, is it my fault that the cards aren't good? It's like, of course not. The cards were shuffled by a machine.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, dealing blackjack was fun.
You get to be the face of their
all the
their greatest
frustration.
victory.
Yeah,
and
you're the
all their
lightning rod
frustration.
for all their anger.
Do you have to have a good poker face if you're a dealer?
No.
You just-
In fact, it's good to be super empathetic because they really want you to be as humane and approachable as possible. Like, you have to be genial. At least it's a good idea to. You can absolutely be a total robot, and that's a strategy. But more often than not, people are sitting at your table. Like, I had people that would come to my table because I was there, and that feels really good.
Sort of like a server.
Yeah, exactly. But like, you know, they would follow because like you also have to move tables. Like, there's a rotation involved usually. So like, I had people who would like follow me from table to table, and they're like, "I like you. You're funny," and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." So if you can, the whole point of it is entertainment, right? Like, that's the first thing our blackjack dealer trainer told us was like, hey, guess what? You're all part of the adult industry now. So, the adult entertainment industry. So you can put that on your resume. I'm like, oh no. But yeah, like it's straight up entertainment. It is the same as going to an arcade, except an arcade does not promise you money back.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, but so yeah, in a way though, I mean, obviously, game design isn't specifically the adult entertainment area, but it is the entertainment, zone.
It's
so it's probably
an entertainment area.
Yeah. So you were getting like ground, was it like, in a way you were getting the face to face with the interaction of people playing games for the purpose of entertainment.
Right.
And this was before or after you got into pornography?
Me? Like, I mean, I was a teenager. No, like.
So
you
before.
mean as a hobby, right? Not as an actor. But no, like, it's just it was a unique experience. And it was fun to do the casino work because I was one of the few people in a game design program that had a gaming license. And it's also a sector that nobody likes to talk about in game design. It's like the black sheep that's like, yeah, it exists and it makes a ton of money, but no one's cool with it.
I remember, because you've sent us like articles about like, the top games, the top casino games that are coming out because they're still designing new ones. You think they're all the classics, and the new games are kind of spins on the classics, but they're still like re-engineering or retooling the games.
Yeah, and most casinos are going to support the classic games because that's just, it's easy to get people to do it. But like, I had to learn like 5 or what we call the carnival games, which are just like permutations that make things interesting. And I really think that that's neat. And if you make a game that you can test, like, it has to go through a super rigorous testing process. It's like 2 years of testing to make sure that it's fair and that it has an edge that's not above a certain percentage. Because, like, we have strict regulations on gambling. But if you make a game that can wind up on a table at a casino, they pay you per table to license it. And that can be, like, a couple $100,000 a year guaranteed if you make a banger of a game. So, it's a space that, like, and like, honestly, the jobs that I see most frequently that require like entry level work are designing slot machines. Like, there's stuff in the space for it, and it's a good place to like cut your teeth on to learn something. But like, the process of making an analog game for casino purposes is something that you almost have to have like a company that you're working for to do that. The odds of just doing it as a team are slim, because you have to really want it, and you have to be willing to like sit for 2 years without getting paid.
Oh, gotcha. Well, we covered. I was just going to ask. Yeah. So, let's get into that. The idea of like designing games and designing games on a team versus like in a company, like you were mentioning. I guess let's just start with, do you remember the first game that you designed, whether it be the one that was for school or if it was something that you did on your own?
Yeah, the first game that I ever technically designed was in 5th grade. It was for a homework project where we had to report about deep sea ocean life, and I made a Monopoly ripoff where you had to race around the Marianas Trench and answer trivia questions, or you get stopped by the denizens of the Marianas Trench. And it was terrible. All of my components were made out of dried Play-Doh. It was 5th grade.
Oh, no. I hate it
but
already.
Including the board?
No, the board was like poster board, but like the pawns, the little, like I didn't use thimbles and race cars. No, there was like starfish and octopi and stuff.
That's
like
cool
that.
though.
Yeah, it was technically my first foray into game making, but it was also like made last minute because I'm really bad at homework.
Same.
Procrastination is like my lifeblood, and I will wait until the very last moment. So a lot of that Play-Doh wasn't fully dry when it got to the classroom.
The fact that you were intentionally trying to get dry Play-Doh. But it makes sense. How else do you make a game piece at that age? It's not like you have a 3D printer or I don't know.
I mean, they didn't exist back then, Joel. Like,
yes, I remember. So that's clever of you. And so you're not going to sit there and like whittle away at like a piece of rock to create like game pieces.
Yeah.
So what do you think sets game? So that's really early. So what do you think makes the difference between people who just love to play games versus the people who love to make games?
Well, I think there's in the Venn diagram world they overlap heavily. I think every game maker loves to play games, but there's what's a pro-am level where like there's professional amateurs in the analog space for sure, because like you'll meet people who are like, this is year 8 of me working on this this real time or this strategy minis game, so I'm delving into like this tiny section of a historical war game based on the French Revolution of insert this period here, and it's super specific to the point where I have like grapes that I have to like disseminate to the wineries. People get crazy about this because it's a hobby for them, and that's great, but you're never going to make that into a business model, right? Like you'll never recoup a profit for 8 years sunk into a board game. Gone are the days when we could make Pictionary and make millions, right? The space is very crowded because it's low barrier to entry. You can have these professional amateurs just kind of like come in at their leisure and be like, this is, I put 10 years into this and I don't really want a profit, but it's still on the shelf and it's still occupying, people's attention. And that's a great thing. I love seeing those games because they're beautiful. But like, I think if you want to do it as a business, you have to be able to, develop quickly. And you'd be like, is this going to work? No? Cool. Chuck it. You have to be able to develop instead of developing for an audience of you're developing for an audience of people, that are not you sometimes. And you have to figure out like, how do I meet them there? So I think that's when the intention changes. Like when you're designing for somebody else, when you're designing for like a crowd, that's when design becomes like more intentional for doing it as a way to earn an income.
When you end up seeing, or someone tells you they spent a certain amount of time on a game, do you have feelings like if someone's like, hey, I've spent nine years on this one game, like does your brain like immediately say like that game is probably overly complicated, or like,
I mean, I will immediately check to see how thick that rule book is. Like that's at a glance, that's contextual information that tells me that this is going to be a pretty, I wouldn't say bloated, but it's going to be a very time intensive, game. Odds are, if you spent 10 years developing a game that's like a gateway game, you weren't really working on it for 10 years. You're probably working on it for one with lots and lots of pauses in between.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah.
If you really wanted to work on something for 8 years, that's going to have like a phone book for a rule book. More often than not.
That is going to be the most elegant,
It's true.
Like, poetic game design.
It could be super masterfully built, and it's one of those things where like I love to look at people's games to see where they're at, to see if like how. What do you mean by you spent 8 years? Like, where is that time being spent? And if it's bumming around and playing like once every 2 months, then yeah, that makes sense that 8 years went by because your development's actually probably only a few 100 hours in at most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I think that is like sort of what I don't want to say separates X Seekers of Fortune from other projects I've done, but it was like the amount of time that Danny and I grinded away intentionally, day in, day out, versus any other project I've ever worked on, which has been like, I come over, I fiddle with it, for an afternoon, and then I, walk away from it for 2 weeks. So yeah, I think that that's huge. And you're right. The idea of like, I'm no longer is the, I want it that way, an acceptable answer. The answer has to be, what's intuitive for people, other people, what's fun for other people. It's like, I find this, Danny can find trolling me fun all day long, but if other people don't find it fun,
it is. Yeah. God. Objectively, I'm going to have to take another point for that, actually.
Okay.
But I think I think honestly, the instant that in your head you say the word audience, that's probably when you're thinking about it less as an amateur and more as a professional.
Yeah,
the 100%.
So, and also when you make decisions based on what it's going to cost to produce.
Yeah, that too. Like,
100%.
I mean, I don't know. I've encountered plenty of games that are like, nah, it's going to be this way because it's going to be this way, and chuck the cost of the box. People will buy it. Look at Twilight Imperium, man. Like, that thing weighs a ton, and it's a huge box, and it's like it's a massive price tag. People buy it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you found your people that are willing to throw that money at it.
Oh, I want to soon.
Yeah, we want to play Twilight Imperium on stream.
Yeah,
I
really want to try the new Descent. I have the old Descent where it was it's asymmetric with one player plays the GM and everybody else plays heroes. But the GM deck is like, the GM has a deck of cards and they have a completely different play style. That's fun, but there's nothing worse than when the GM wins. Like, it sucks to win if you're the GM because everyone's mad at you.
Yeah, we'll have to check out. So what's new about the new Descent then? Is the new Descent?
It's GMless. It's run by all the bookkeeping kept, I believe, by an app. So it's kind of like
clever.
You get mad at the computer.
Yeah, we
as
can all
it should
get mad
be.
At computers. Down with big tech.
Yeah,
get mad at those artificial intelligences.
Yes, which we are very mad at those at the moment.
Yes, in general.
So, well, let's put your game under some scrutiny here, and let's see how it stacks up, like on the professional versus amateur. Now, your game is called Inns and Outcasts, and from what I understand, this game takes place at a tavern. In your classic adventure setting, you are at a tavern with the other adventurers who you all just got back from going out on an adventure, and now you're dividing up the loot, and you have a game. I know it's not a trick-taking game, but it has like maybe a little bit of that flair to it. How would you pitch the game, and how would you, get?
We just say that it the spiel that I give is most of what you said. It's 3 to 8 players, wraps up in 30 minutes. It's just a mad dash to grab as much loot as you can as quickly as possible. We do that through simultaneous play. where it's more about reading the table space and reacting at the right time to trip up your opponents and make those mad dashes yourself.
Yeah.
But it definitely has like, it's weird because it lives in so many like almost categories that that's why I like it. But it has, because of the simultaneous play, it feels like you're taking a trick, but everybody can still gain points even if you get trumped. So it isn't really trick taking. There can be bluffing if you're trying to get into people's headspace, but the deduction element isn't social deduction until it kind of is, because as you're trying to deduce what people are doing, there's tactics involved, or there's strategy involved. I wouldn't say tactics, because tactics usually indicates like skirmishing on a board, whereas this is more just like looking and anticipating what you think your opponents are going to play, and then trying to maximize your response to that. And the other part is you can also just turn your brain off and just play whatever you want randomly, and that can also be a viable tactic to trick people up. If nobody can figure out what you're planning, if you don't know,
it's
we call that the Joel strategy.
It's especially fun to play with people that you kind of enjoy ribbing, I think, because you are so often kind of trying to, get people tricked out of their gold, right? So you kind of have to get a little bit of joy of, you got to play with people that you get a little bit of joy of getting one over on them.
Oh, absolutely. As the designer, I am almost always, and like without fail, the biggest target is on my back whenever I sit at the table. I haven't won very many games of Inns and Outcasts in a long time, because when we first started, I had a design partner, and he and Jen would both just come at me with knives out because they thought I was some prodigy. I'm like, I'm not that good at this game, guys.
Yeah. You're just slightly ahead of the curve because you designed it. Danny and I have felt that very frequently with X Secrets of Fortune. Well, why don't you take us back there to the genesis of this? So how long are we going back? How long did it take you to make the game?
When I graduated in 2020, we graduated
lovely time
in May.
to graduate.
Yeah, right.
I'm guessing you didn't walk no stage.
No, but they did. All right, so our professors were super crazy in the best way. One of the animation professors took a bunch of Star Wars toys and made a college walk where they walked Star Wars figures across a graduation stage as they called out our names and had us accept diplomas as different Star Wars figurines.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was very sweet. And it was very strange.
Was it just? It would be crazy if it was stop motion. Was it stop motion?
It was stop motion because he was an animation professor.
Oh my god! How long did that take? How many students were there?
It doesn't matter because they just took the time to do it, and I mean, it was a beautiful act of decency. Eventually, they had
decency or insanity.
Well, both. I mean, can't it be both?
Yes, that's true.
Those things are not mutually exclusive.
Truth.
But yeah, so we graduated in 2020 in May, and then my design partner and I said, "All right, let's make a game. COVID sucks. Let's make a game that you can play over Discord." The original title for this game was Drinks in Discord, because the plan was to, how like in Discord chats you get that little 9 block where everybody's like Brady bunched.
Yeah.
We wanted to turn that into a game board and then have that be how everybody played the game. So like you're doing like this Brady Bunch thing of like, haha, I go to upper left, and it's like, oh no, I'm after Joel. Exactly. But we found out that everybody has a different view. So that immediately broke the concept. But we had already we had settled on we did an iteration process, like a blue sky, where both of us presented in a week. We made all of the base rules for Inns and Outcasts in 1 month. 40 hours a week, 4 weeks, so between 2 people. So in that time frame, we
about
fully
320 hours.
We had fully fleshed out and tested the basics of what would become Inns and Outcasts.
Oh, cool.
And that was just to see how far can we get in a month. And that was the whole point of the exercise. Let's make a game, make it something that we can distribute for free if we have to, resume builder. But really, if we're going to do this as a business, let's see what our burn rate is and how far 1 month will get us. So the first thing we did, week 1, 3 days, we had to develop 4 game concepts, put them out there, weigh them against each other, and Inns and Outcasts ended up being the one that was the strongest of the bunch. We did have a really fun board game that I'm very excited to one day do. It's called Hubris, and the premise is like essentially you keep on taking extra risks to see who can make the longest word. If you screw up, you get negative points. So it's literally like hubris of like, haha, I can do 7 words. No, I can do 8, and like you just kind of goad people into taking bigger challenges than they can.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. But like that was the runner-up. We never got there. We put that one aside. So then we took Inns and Outcasts, which the concept of that was like the 1 through 6 initiatives interacting with each other. Each initiative has its own like theme around it, so that way we could build. We had flexibility to build in that space. And then like rock paper scissors style play where 1 beats 2, or 1 is stomped by 2, 2 is stomped by 3, up to 5. And the idea is that 1 has an ability that naturally wants to go after the 5, and 6 would be the wild card to make things interesting. Okay. So that's when we figured out our player base, figured out our audience, like how many people we could do. We still wanted to do 9 because we were still like obsessed with like Discord being able to hold like 9 people in a call. And we're like, that's a lot of people. I think that'll be a good space.
Wait, has Discord expanded to more than 9 people on a call?
Oh, sure. It was more like you could have 9 video screens up at a time in a chat.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's where we kind of wanted it to be. And like at the time we had like a board and extra pieces to demark who was sitting next to who. But the idea was that you could just print off 1 sheet of cards, and like you would take a picture of, you would just point your camera at your play space, and that would be all you need, because none of the cards pass between other players, so it's always all contained within your zone. So that's why it was like our pandemic game, and that's why we wanted to put it on Discord, because you didn't have to like hand stuff off.
Okay.
And then after we did that, we did some testing, and we're like, okay, we're done. It's in about where it's at now. We needed to start worrying about like getting, if we wanted to develop it further, we're like, we need assets. And Jen was like, I want to work on it, and we're like, you're the best artist I've ever met. So yeah, sure, that sounds great.
That's awesome. That's your ace in the hole right there.
Yeah, she's 100% responsible for all the art in the game, and it's the thing that people love about it the most.
Hey, Joel.
Hey, Danny. What's going on?
Have you heard about that new game called Le Fleur?
Not enough. Do you have more to tell me about it?
Absolutely, I do. First of all, it is a game about Rococo French garden enthusiasts. And if you don't know what Rococo is, it's like late Baroque, so you know we're talking about cool stuff.
Oh, hell yeah. I love me a art history.
So in this game that you should know about, because it is super cool, you're going to play one of these enthusiasts, and you're trying to have the best garden party of all the aristocrats who are throwing garden parties. And all the other aristocrats are going to be trying to outdo you. Does that sound like something that you want to do?
Like competition to be the fanciest boy? The fanciest lad? Please tell me more.
I thought a dandy like you would love that. So here's the thing. You're going to have to go around. You're going to start off with a chateau. It's going to suck. It's going to be plain. It's going to be boring. But that's where you come in. You're going to have to run around Paris collecting stuff to glitz it up and make the best possible garden party. Does that sound like something that you want to do?
What, Trip the Light Fantastic and Oui Paris?
I don't know what you just said, but I liked it. Okay. Well, in the end, if you can do it, if you can pull it off, if you can be the most prestigious Rococo garden party, then you'll be declared the host of the Grand Soiree, and you will win at Le Fleur. What do you say about that?
I say, where do I find out more, Danny?
You can learn more at DocSominum.com. The game is currently live on Kickstarter, unless you're listening to this in the back catalog, in which case you should probably just look for it on Amazon or wherever you buy games. And buy the game. Buy Le Fleur.
Yeah.
Be the fanciest and the Frenchest.
I challenge everybody at home to try to be fancier and Frencher than me. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. You're going to need it.
All right. Well, back to the show of the Megamouth Studios Super Secret Podcast.
If you can call it that.
Welcome back from the Garden Party Secret Keepers. We're back with Andy Noetzel. Said it right?
You got it right.
Noetzel pretzel.
Yeah, Noetzel, just like pretzel. We're back with Andy Noetzel, and we're talking about his game Inns and Outcasts. We're talking about the design process of making the game. So, Andy, you said that you and your partner did kind of like rapid fire. Let's just come up with broad concepts for games, and then let's like just choose one and go forth with it. But I always like to know, because your wife Jen is an artist who obviously needs a theme to run with. How early in the process did y'all decide on the theme for Inns and Outcasts?
Almost immediately. Like I approached it with I would like to develop in the space of, let's look at the trope of after the adventure's over and splitting up the loot. That's something that hasn't really been touched on a lot, and I felt that was a pretty rich design space to play in.
Okay.
So,
and
she had we had some like placeholder art for her to look at that she immediately discarded for much better art. But yeah, like there was something that at least evoked the concept. Like I have a video I can link you to that'll show you like the evolution of the art of Inns and Outcasts.
Oh yeah, that'd be great if we hopefully we could run some of that video now. If you're a YouTube viewer and not an audio listener, you could possibly be watching some of that video as we speak. Okay, so there's always like that before and after. I know Danny and I feel that way of like before we got our real art in, or before we got the real art versus after. How long were you in that rough placeholder art phase?
Oh, I mean, we were in placeholder art until Jen even touched the project, and even then it was like about 2 months of development for her to get all the art for the first 6 cards. So
okay.
But I mean, we also designed this game to be super compact in the fact that like it's 6 cards that make the entire first game. Like each end only has 6 cards to it. It's just repeated 8 times. So everyone gets the same choices of characters to choose from. But the initial version only had 6 characters, and then we were gonna either stop, but then we had this kind of like notion of like, oh well, we could make it so that there's more than 6 characters. We could make expansions, and what would that look like? And that was kind of where we started playing around and really thinking about it as more of a franchise as opposed to just a one-off, portfolio piece.
It does give me like Red Dragon Inn vibes. It gives me vibes of what's that other game, Munchkin or something like that. It feels like you could be releasing expansions for this game for years to come. So I really enjoyed that. I'm sure there's how long does it? I mean, we're seeing the art process hopefully here, or we're linking you to a video to see the art process. But yeah, how long did it take Jen to go from character concept to like having art ready to put onto the card and into the game?
I mean, it usually takes her about, I would say, like 30 or 40 hours per piece that she does. Usually we have a pretty like conversational like back and forth about what it's going to be and how it's going to look. Since I've done production, I make it my business to be able to communicate with her on her terms to make sure that what I have in my head matches up what she has in her head, and then I just let her do her magic. But at the same time, I'm also providing feedback at every sketch step and making sure that it's what we both want and not just like what one of the two of us want, because that can lead to problems down the line where and that's why like we wanted all the characters to be diverse. We didn't want it to be a bunch of people that are pasty and bearded, and we wanted to have a lot of different skin tones, and we wanted to have monsters as NPCs, like, because that's a big thing for me in like D&D. I don't like monsters just being carte blanche written off as, hey, you got the monster text, so you're killable for XP. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy that. I like to ask players like, what makes a monster? Is it monstrous acts, or is it you were born this way? It should always be monstrous acts.
Yeah. When
unless you were born of several corpses.
There's that. Like, if you are born, there are some things that just, if you eat living things for, like eat sentient beings, that doesn't really put you in a spot where you're not going to be doing monstrous acts. Like, there's no vegan alternative for you.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's, at that point, it does become an us versus them. But yeah, I do love that. I mean, I'm a big proponent of orcs and D&D when they went from being like just naturally evil to just being naturally neutral, I guess you would say. That was a huge win, I thought, because I was always a big fan of playing half orcs. And just the idea of like, oh, they lean towards evil just doesn't like sit well with me, because from the orcs perspective, aren't the elves evil?
Yeah, I think
Taking all
that's
that
the key,
land.
right? Is like it's okay for people for something to like be evil as long as that's from the perspective of people who have different values and are interpreting them as evil rather than them being inherently evil. Like I think
I think, yeah, and I think that's where D&D kind of goofed up for a long time, is that they're like, this is this race, they're always evil. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not good. I mean, even like the famous not evil drow Dritz de Urton is like, oh yeah, he's one of the good ones. Like, that's still really bad, guys. Like, let's not do that.
yeah.
I love the fact that we could go down a rabbit hole on this one, but R.A. Salvatore, like Italian writer, or somebody with Italian roots, obviously has like that's a good one, dark elf. There's something there.
Sure, it's not very hard to spot.
Yes.
But I mean, that's
wait,
also
are the
going off
drow
of,
are the drow not good probably, but are they like not just naturally evil anymore? I know orcs got kind of updated.
I'm a lot out of D&D,
Yeah, okay.
and when I run it, I don't run any of
Drow.
that nonsense. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's up to the individual, but I'm okay. Like, when someone says I want to play an evil character, I'm like, all right, let's talk about what you mean by evil, because there's a lot of different flavors in that. If you're gonna be a jerk, let's talk about how that's gonna impact the game.
Yeah.
And, like,
For
I'm
sure.
okay with it. But,
To an extent.
yeah.
I often market like to people like I want to run an evil campaign at some point or be a part of it maybe, but lowercase e evil. Like you're evil in the sense of like you cheat on your taxes and you might cheat. You're a cheat.
Well, that's
Are you
more
spoiling
lawful.
something coming down the line there, Joel?
I don't know, maybe not spoiling, maybe teasing, but I just think
Teasing?
that's like you got not every evil person's trying to take over the world, and not every evil person's a murder hobo. And I feel like those are the two tastes. of
Murder
evil
hobo?
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
murder hobos. That's 100%. He's got that term down 100%.
What is that?
That's the player that is, I have built this character min-max to be able to turn anything that walks in front of me into soup. Like,
And then they
Interesting.
do.
yeah, and they do mercilessly, whether it's an NPC or a PC. Like, they're totally fine with making a total party kill because somebody got mad at somebody.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
it's somebody who takes the power fantasy portion of Dungeons and Dragons, or any game really, to the sickening nth degree. In fact,
Where does
my
the
first
hobo
session-
aspect come into?
My first session, because they don't have a place to live. They don't
They're
partake in
transient?
civilization. Yeah, they're transient. My first D&D session I ever took part in was driven off the rails by a murder hobo.
What was
that
their
person
name?
never came back. I don't remember, but they were playing a sorcerer and they swore they had leveled the character up to level 16 in another campaign. So we were all like level 1 or 2 characters, and this guy sits down with a level 16 character, and then proceeds to like fly to the closest town and start burning it down. We catch up with him, and we somehow managed to stun him. I think there was a monk and I was a paladin, and the monk managed to stun him, because he like critically failed. And then I was going to deliver the coup de grace. I was going to execute the guy on spot, I think, which was justifiable. But the DM stepped in and did the dirty deed himself after the guy was repentant. I really wish I think I would be telling that story as like the first thing I tell people if I had actually gone to swing the sword. You know what? I'm amending that story here and now. I did deliver the coup de grace as a first level paladin, coup de gracing a 16th level sorcerer.
When you say this is the first thing you would tell people, you mean like you'd introduce yourself as Joel Watts and then tell a story about how you executed someone?
I mean, to be fair, it's got to be a great thing on your resume, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I am Joel Watts, Slayer of the Villainous Sorcerer.
Yes.
I bet the guy wasn't that bad.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure you and him would see eye to eye on a few things, Danny.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we will. Okay, well, back to Inns and Outcasts, though. And that's the great thing, because like there's all those tropes that you're familiar with from other games that are showing up. So
and other like works of media too. Like, I love Discworld deeply. Like, that is
Yes.
one of my favorite fantasy series. And the setting that we made for Inns and Outcasts is meant to be one of those open-ended things that can get slotted into anybody's homebrew campaign. It is basically the fantasy equivalent of a tourist trap. So if you can think of Discworld meets Las Vegas, even though Discworld has its own Las Vegas, but that's essentially what the City of Destiny is. Everybody's on the take, and it's all just a big scam to try and trick everybody out of their hard-earned coin, including the adventurers, the villains, the mercenaries that are just there to make a quick buck. Everybody's walking away with a little less jingle in their pocket.
Mm-hmm. Sounds a lot like a cyberpunk but fantasy version of cyberpunk.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's nothing wrong with, like, I would love to see a post-apocalyptic fantasy, like, mix those genres and let's have some fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, technically, Adventure Time was kind of that, but in its own cartoony way.
Yeah, I mean, and like even before that, Ralph Bakshi's Wizards, crazy animation, but a very, very unique idea of a post-apocalyptic fantasy world where like the villains are that just someone finds old tech and it's just like, hey, are back. Sorry, I shouldn't have said like.
To be clear, it wasn't that. We're gonna bleep it all anyway, but
yeah.
No,
or
trust
we'll
me.
just cut that.
He
Cut that
didn't say
mention of Wizards altogether because that is 100% not like the thing to show to the family at Christmas time. Your parents will look at you strange.
Okay. So we've talked about the art, and we talked about Jin's work on the art, and we talked about the rough design aspects of Inns and Outcasts and the world of Inns and Outcasts.
Yeah.
I guess what we know is like we have like a variety of artists for our game, but then there's one person, LD, who takes care of everything that isn't the artwork on the card, the design, card frames, boards, things like that. Who did that work for Inns and Outcasts?
So I did the initial version of it, and it looked like a child had done it. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to get the point across. And then Jen came through and she tweaked it, and we've done several iterations. So
Jen is very talented. She did both the like design work and the artwork.
Yes, Jen is an extremely talented graphic designer and an illustrator and everything else. Like, she's an immensely capable artist. So if you ever need one, she's freelance and she's so happy to work on games. Like, this isn't even the first game project she's worked on. She's done 2 other ones that I can think of because she helped me a little bit during my undergrad work. And she helped another student with one called Party Corgis, which was like a game where she got to just draw corgis, which is like her favorite thing to draw.
Oh, so. that sounds like something you'd volunteer for at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, yeah, I'll help him with his art. And they struck a deal up that if he ever went to sell it, there'd be compensation, but she didn't ask for compensation up front on that particular project. Well, it's because it was student work. Only because it was student work.
Okay, I gotcha.
Like you got to cut the college student a break because they're going to be paying debt for like ever.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into that one.
Right. That's a dark tunnel.
Okay. So Inns and Outcasts, I've played it. I really liked it. I can't wait to play it in person, though. I mean, I know you designed it for Discord, but I'm a big board games are for a table and for sitting across from people. So I'm looking forward to playing it in person. But what's the release? Like, where are we at in the release process? And when can people expect to be able to pick up a copy?
Right. So right now the units are manufactured. So it's May 1st when we're recording. This is just for reference. The units are currently in China, manufactured, sitting in pallets, waiting to be shipped.
Okay.
And now we're just finalizing the address of whether that's going to my front door, where they're going to live in my garage, and then I'm going to manually distribute them, or if we can sign a contract with the distributor, which we have 2, one that we're having like a major talk with tomorrow. So hopefully that will start the shipping process tomorrow if everything works out great, and they'll be here hopefully in a month or so. Usually it takes like 4 to 6 weeks to get stuff on a cargo ship and get it shipped overseas.
That it does.
And then after that, we can start sending out units to, I don't know, Houston, maybe, uh, is it Austin that you're at? Well, I know one of them is.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in Houston.
I'm in Austin.
Joel's in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in Austin.
exactly.
I'm
So
the cool
send
one.
units out that way. Maybe get some local footage at different locations. But also, like, if we're working with a distributor, then we'll have a listing on that distributor's site, so that game stores don't have to like go to my website and just get redirected.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, ideally, we're gonna hopefully see these before July would be, I think, a safe bet.
Oh, nice.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Very. You're in that home stretch. Like we're looking
Right.
forward to being there in a few months from today. Hopefully we'll be there where you're sitting. That's an exciting time. Like finally having the real game in your hand.
A long time to get there. Like, I mean, even when we started the manufacturing process, it still took another like 2 months on top of that. But we kind of expected that. It's just this last little piece has taken a little longer than we've expected. But Gamma was super useful. I got to talk to a lot of folks there, and I'll probably keep talking back there for a long time. Like, I think I'm going to keep going to Gamma for a while, as long as I can afford it.
It's nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so Andy, I mean, I think there's just one more major question to ask you, and that's, what's next for game-changing designs? Like, do you have other games in the pipeline now that Inns and Outcasts is kind of like reaching the home stretch? Like, what's your sights set on?
So our goal is to start really building up a community for Inns and Outcasts, because I want any expansions that we do release to be something that players can weigh in on. Our plan is to release expansions in pairs, so it'll basically be a standalone expansion. You'll get another 12 characters to choose from, with enough to support 8 players. So, but you won't have all the coins and play mats and stuff like that. So it'll keep the unit cost down.
Yeah.
But you'll get the same amount of content as you would in the base box. And if you decide you don't want the base box, then don't get it. Like get the thing that you want. But we want players to have a say on what inns we're going to be dealing with, because each inn has its own little denizens that are thematically tied to it. So hopefully, we're hoping 9 months. Well, yeah, basically 9 months after Inns and Outcasts starts getting on shelves, we want to have an expansion in the works. We also are working on other games, though. I've got 2 that are fairly far along. One is called Grabby Hands. It's a little claw machine simulator that's themed around a bunch of raccoons trying to get the prizes out of a claw machine. And it's very, very adorable. And we have a publisher that's interested in that. There's also another game called Flamenco Flamingo, where a flamingo has managed to get caught up in a bunch of flamenco garb and is surprisingly willing to dance around a town square based on the instruments that people are playing.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's a fun little short game. Also, that both of these are like mint tin sized games, so they're really small, fit in the pocket very easily. And then I'm working on another one that's supposed to be kind of like a booster for local game stores, and it's called, right now the name is Bitey Dice. The theme is
So grabby hands, bitey dice. I like this. They could so easily be in a pair, like on the same box.
Exactly. And with Bitey Dice, the idea is that it's a game that's 18 cards, and you supply dice that you already own if you own polyhedral dice. So the goal is to make it so inexpensive that if somebody buys 3 sets of dice at a local game store, they can just get a copy for free as a promo. Or you can buy it for like $5 if you already have dice and you just want the game. So make it so that the local game store can use it how they want to raise funds, and help keep the local game store economy alive, because it's super, super important.
Absolutely.
But that game's a bit like a deduction game. So much like in Bridge, you deal out all the cards. Each card represents one of a polyhedral set of dice. So there's minus the percentile die, because that's used to mark suits. And then it's trying to figure out if a card is a mimic or if a card is, in fact, a jewel that you can use. And if it's a mimic, it bites off your finger and runs away. And then you have to guess again.
Yeah. I actually just played that game with you 2 weeks ago, I think, on Discord. It was like, yet again, one of those like, where's this game been? You know, especially because it uses the polyhedron dice. I was saying like this could be a mini game within Dungeons and Dragons. You know, everybody just throws in their own dice set. You know, 3 of the players throw in their own dice set, and you can play it like that. You know, a quick round of it.
And there's a guy on TikTok who's been popping off with just like polyhedral dice games that just use polyhedral dice. It's nice dice games, and like he's got like 5 or 6 games that he's put out on like just itch.io that are like full on games that you can just play with dice. Here's the rules on how to do it. And it's super cool of him to do that, but I'd love to see like what he could do in that operating space too, to make games that are useful for game stores. Because that to me is an area that also needs to be more enriched. Kind of like cheap ass games did this for a long time. They would print off, like you could get the rights to print off small copies of their games, and it would just be like a sandwich baggie with a printed off, you know, sheet of paper and like some scrap components. But it was a full game, and they were, you know, you could sell them in the store for $1 or $2 and still make a profit. You know.
Nice.
And it's one of those like impulse buys that's like, yeah, I'll buy a game for $2, and it's surprisingly fun because James Ernest is a very good game designer in my opinion.
I definitely have a game like, well, we get more into it. When I was I mean the people who've like listened to the show for a while know like about Cuddle, and when I was looking at that was like, oh, if you can make this game like, you know, what, $3 to $5, just, you know, a pack of cards that's like $3 to $5, like the impulse buy. It's just like have it out,
right?
You know, like it's like the candy bars at the supermarket. Like just have them right there at the cash register. And it's just like, oh, you already bought like, you know, $30 of stuff. Why don't you get this little pocket game?
Yeah, man.
You know?
Every dice dragon, dice goblin is already filled to the brim with dice. So giving them extra games that they can play with their shinies, that's the best feeling in the world. Be like, I get to take my shinies out and use them without playing D&D. Like, I don't have to wait for 5 other people to arrange a weekend. I can just play this.
Yeah, so those are like, you know, some really great like low, like it seems like you're thinking about how to make games small and condensed and very easy to sell or manufacture. What is, just like one final question, do you have a shoot the moon style game? Like if you were, you know, we brought up Twilight Imperium earlier.
Sure.
Like, do you have a game that's like at that scale that you would love to design? I have
like 26 game designs that I've had cooking since 20, oh God. It was 2009. I've been dreaming of magnum opus games for forever. But before I take my moonshot, I want to build a healthy array of gateway and mid-sized games. That way when I put out this game, people will buy it because they know my name and not just because it's a, you know, 50-pound box that costs $300. But Jen and I were cooking up a fantasy world called Second Star, and it's filled with steampunk airships and magic and mutations and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And like I have this elaborate board game where you're playing as people who are like starting out as basically airship captains of tiny vessels, and you want to build fame or infamy and run around and do a bunch of stuff, build a crew. It's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, this is going to take 7 hours to play, I'm sure. It might take that long to get through the rule book when we write it, and so I may never make that game, but it lives in my head. And I, you know, probably every odd weekend I kind of like talk about it to myself and be like, yeah, maybe, and it's like, no, this isn't the time. But I really enjoy making smaller stuff right now, especially since I'm happy doing development work for other people. Like, that's where I like to operate right now, and it's kind of fulfilling to be able to help people make their own little magnum opus game that's, you know, got that larger scope without having to like worry about my own my own crazy pipe dream. Because like when I start working on my own pipe dream thing, it's like, I don't know, maybe this is a pipe dream. But at least with other people's stuff, I can like look at it critically and be removed from it and be like, you know, this decision might be a little bit much right now.
Well, I would say, you got me really jazzed about, what did you call it? Second Star?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
If I
mean,
can ever
like,
get Jen to do the art for the comic that we want to make for it, you'll be the
I
first
have I have a
in
feeling
our
that's your X
reader.
Seekers of Fortune, because like my if I were to have one tip for you, just like set something small in second star. Just say Inns and Outcasts is set in second star, whatever. Just give people a foothold in the world, because the idea is like the ideas that Danny and I are cooking up as to the other types of things X Seekers of Fortune can be is it's growing, and it's like, as long as you give people a foothold into the world. I mean, look at Dungeons and Dragons. It was just
Right.
a player's handbook, and now it's miniature
A
games.
media
It's a
empire,
movie.
yeah.
It's a media empire. So these things grow, and Second Star sounds like a place I'd love to be, and I'd love to talk to you more about it off mic at the next TNX. But
Well, Inns and Outcasts is already set up to do a lot of ridiculous growth on its own, and if it goes bananas, we'll be up to our armpits and stuff for that for years to come. So,
sure.
Here's hoping.
yeah, here's
Yeah,
hoping,
sure,
man. Like the
100%.
best thing that could happen is that game explodes because I like playing in that world. I like developing it out. We have some fun things. Like we would love to make TTRPG elements for it at some point, and Jen and I have talked about making a comic for it for a while now, just because it's a fun story, and I've got a lot of goofy stuff that I really want to do in that world. So more
Okay.
opportunities to do it without having to like make another set and wait 9 months for people to get the next little snippet of story. I'm really bad at holding stuff back. Like I don't know how you guys manage to do it unless you just like have like bruises on your legs from just like punching yourself to keep yourself from like like spouting out everything, because it's like I want you to see all the cool stuff. I do.
Well,
I want you to see it right now.
Well, see, the thing is, I get off on being withholding, and Danny wants to say everything, and I say no. They do not deserve it. They will, they will
Yeah,
deserve
man,
it.
you would
when I
not
when I
believe
say.
how rude Joel is behind the curtain. He's
Especially when my AC is out and I'm getting bad sleep.
yeah.
Oh man. Well, I watch like there's so many animators right now that like I said, I follow a lot of independent animators, and they are
Yeah.
also stuck in that same bubble of there's so many things we just want to tell you, but animation takes forever and we can't say it or it'll spoil everything. And it's just
Exactly. We want you to experience it as a complete thing. It's like I could tell you our plans right now, but that's
Right.
lacks so much like a fidelity, high fidelity that you get from having like the sound in place and the colors in place and the animation in place and the story and the dialogue. It's like I could walk you through the storyline right now if you want me to, but it's going to be so boring. Like I remember reading the was a plot synopsis for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And boy, if you thought
Yeah.
that movie was disappointing when you saw it, just imagine how disappointing it is when you read it as an outline. All right, Andy. Well,
That's
speaking
good.
of things that are disappointing, why don't we go ahead and move on to our lightning round section? Danny, do you want to tell Andy about 8 to rate?
Yep. So 8 to rate is a very disappointing segment that we like to bring and subject our guests to.
There you go.
So it's 8 to rate, underrated or overrated lightning round. You are no doubt familiar with this by now, but for those who have not seen this segment before, what we're going to do is we're going to give Andy 8 different items, and his job is going to be to rate them either under or overrated and give us a very brief explanation as to why he chose his rating. So, are you ready, Andy?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
All right. Number 1, Tabletop Simulator.
It's pretty underrated. I've done a lot of engine work, and I think it's a nice little cross section of getting an introductory into 3D engine work and also making stuff with a basic physics engine that you can customize a lot of stuff in. I love Tabletop Simulator. I think it could do with a little bit more. I would love it if it could if it didn't have a paywall. That'd be really cool.
That would be cool.
That's called
But-
Tabletopia, not as cool.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the UI on Tabletop Simulator is just so much better, and that's
Oh
why
yeah,
I
100%. Though there's a reason we pay for it.
Yeah, yeah. For those at home, I'll just say briefly, playing on Tabletopia to playing on Tabletop Simulator is like the difference between eating your food off the floor or a plate on a table. So, number 2, getting a degree in game design.
I would say it is underrated
Okay.
because the industry doesn't appreciate it as much as it should. Like, I think that it would be great if a lot more game design students got out into the world, into the industry, because they survived a degree program, because they are rigorous and intense.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah.
Number 3, meeples.
I think meeples are overrated. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, meeples are cool. I like the physicality of them. They are expensive to put in a box, and I can achieve a lot with cardboard punches in a lot of interesting ways that I can't do with a meeple.
Yeah.
Also, we live in a world with 3D printers and like injection molded plastic that can do really cool stuff. But
Yeah, meeple seems like a very like lackluster step between like what you said, like punch out and full model, and it feels like an in between step that isn't quite exciting.
they have a purpose. I just think that they've kind of hit like a pop culture level that's weird.
100%.
But yeah, I think they're a little overrated because of that.
Number 4, Chicago pizza.
Oh, Chicago pizza does not get nearly enough credit. It's delicious, dude. Like, I love deep dish pizza, and come to Peoria. Like, even Peoria has better deep dish pizza than, like, I wouldn't say than Chicago, but like than you're gonna get elsewhere. Like Illinois deep dish pizza, it's great. If you haven't had it, that's why you don't appreciate it.
All right. Are you ready for number 5?
Yeah, man, bring it.
Okay, on the theme of Chicago, the Great Chicago Fire of 1871.
I mean, it's a bit overrated. Like, it was a big disaster, but they've rebuilt clearly. Like, I don't think Chicago's gone.
All right.
And it wasn't really like fair to, like, it was unfortunately used for some pretty bad propaganda. Like, Mrs. O'Leary's cow was not in fact the starter of it, and it was more anti-Irish sentiment that caused that particular story to take hold.
Well, but it was a cow. The cow's not Irish.
No, it was sparks from a chimney. It's Mrs. O'Leary's cow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the issue. But it was actually sparks from a chimney.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine living back in the day. Like, I actually don't fear fires, probably not nearly as much as I should, because I'm just like, how does anything catch on fire anymore? Everything's made of like concrete and stone.
I worked in building materials, dude. I can tell you right now that there's a lot more wood in more buildings than you would expect.
Oh no, false
Yeah.
advertisements over here. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Number
I still
6.
think it's going to be a long time before an entire city burns down again from a few sparks from a chimney.
This is true.
Okay, number 6.
Number 6, store-bought ice cream.
Store-bought ice cream's okay. It's a bit overrated. Mainly if you're diabetic, there ain't a whole lot of options for you, and it's really expensive. Making your own ice cream is pretty easy. You can get cheap machines that do it very well, or you can do what we did and get an expensive machine that does it very well for a lot easier. But no, like, if you make your own stuff, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's where the fun gets into it.
Danny, didn't you buy an ice cream machine?
I did. Andy, which one do you have?
We have a Cuisinart one that has its own like refrigeration unit in it.
That sounds like something out of Star Trek.
Oh yeah, it's very close to a replicator. You just pour in a slurry, and then in like 30 minutes you have ice cream, and it's like, I didn't have to fiddle with rock salt or water or any of that nonsense. It just churns it, spits it out, and then just like you pull it out when you're done. You're like, yeah, delicious.
I love it.
Okay.
It's super cool. All right, number 7, Bluey.
Oh, Bluey is absolutely underrated. Bluey should be part of like school curriculum, to be honest with you. That show has consistently broken me as an adult multiple times, where like my wife and I are just sitting going, like full snot tears, the whole thing. It's therapy
Academy Award winning.
Yeah, and it's therapy
Performances.
for millennia. Dude, they're doing a multiple animation project right now, like that's Bluey themed, and I cannot wait to see the end result. It's based off of the episode where Bingo dreams of being in space, and that episode was a masterpiece of animation. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with this multiple animator project. I've seen snippets, and it's like, oh, gorgeous.
Oh,
Nice. All right, number 8. This last one is going to be pretty controversial. Ben from AFEC claiming to be a lawyer amongst other things.
Ben claims to be a lawyer? I know he's going clergy. I didn't know about lawyer.
Yeah, that's why it's controversial.
Lawyer to police pipeline right there, buddy.
I think, well, I mean, who do you want arguing for your immortal soul?
John DeCampos.
There you go. I would say Ben, just in general, is underrated. So I will champion that Ben deserves all the good things that comes to him, even if it's cookie based hate.
Yeah, Ben definitely thinks following the rules in cookie games is overrated. So
Well, that's fair. I mean,
that's fair. Yeah.
As long as everybody agrees to that, that's totally a valid way to play a game.
I'm out of the loop on that one.
Yeah, Joel's not on TikTok. He doesn't.
It's okay.
Just to fill you in, Ben egregiously cheated at a cookie game, and no one will ever let him forget about it.
Yeah, he gets repeatedly rained on. It was funny for a long time. I'm a little worried that as long as it's not actually upsetting him, then it's fine.
I can't tell if it is or not.
I can't either. So that's why I try not to let the cookie
It's okay.
crumble
He
too much.
doesn't listen to the podcast.
It's one of those things.
He's running away from Chicago, dude. He's going to Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Princeton. He got into Princeton Divinity School.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's great for
nice.
him. Like I'm super thrilled for him, but it means I won't get to just saunter over to Chicago. It's way more than 3 hours from here to Jersey.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was 8 to rate. You did it. You rated 8 things.
Woo! Exciting.
Yeah. And I always like to ask Danny at this point. We had a wonderful conversation with Andy here. So, Danny, did you have any key takeaway from our conversation? Anything that really stuck out to you?
I just think that games are such a vital part of life. I think people don't appreciate them and really understand how much they do for society and how much more they could do for society. I really like Andy's approach of constantly thinking about games. I always feel like just from talking to him in general, that his brain is always thinking about how to gamify things, and maybe that's wrong, but that's the
no. You're about right. Even now, there's a competition in the forums on the Game Crafters community page. And I'm like, all right, got to make another game. So, and that's due on the 20th. So I got to get cracking.
Gotta get cracking.
But no, you're not wrong. I think being able to encode things into game spaces is an important language skill. And I'm not even the best at it. I've seen some truly masterful people in the GDC talks that are they make these comparisons that are just that'll shatter your mind. You're like, how is this so simple and so complex? It's
amazing.
Yeah.
I think I had a takeaway from that one as well, which is I should find a partner that I can make games with because it seems awesome.
I like it.
It's a useful thing to have, even if it's a business partner or a life partner. I will warn you, life partner. If you bring a relationship into a business agreement, things get weird.
I've heard tale. Yeah. So I got to be careful with it, but I've always thought I was somebody who I connect best when I'm working on a mutual project, and it is thundering out here in Austin, Texas. The thunder and lightning are going wild. You know what?
There was going to be a tornado.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was going to be down here in Austin, but the lightning has arrived just in time for the end of our lightning round. But so it's a little late there, but it is in time to tell you that you need to lighting up and open up YouTube to our podcast. You hit that like button and you get a light show of your own right there. When that thumb gets hit, boom, confetti goes everywhere, just like the lovely light show I'm about to experience here in Austin, Texas when I get done with the show. So You got that done. You liked the video on YouTube, but there's a little bit more I have to ask for you. Can you please go over and subscribe? That way, just like the weatherman, you'll be able to see our videos when they come out hot, fresh, and ready, because you're going to hit that bell as well. And you're going to get notifications. So just like when a storm rolls in, you get notifications on your phone that you need to roll on inside. You'll get notifications on your phone that it's time to open up and hear Danny and I talk to our guest about the world of game design, game making, game reviewing, and everything in between. But not everybody, as you may know, as I stress, not everybody watches the show. Some people listen to the show. Some people like to listen to their podcasts instead of watch. There are beautiful faces. Danny and I's beautiful faces. So if you got a friend like that out there, you don't have to twist their arm and convince them they have to watch us on YouTube. We are, in fact, on all of the podcatchers, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Lastcast. You know, if you go to Podbean and look up Megamoth Studios Super Secret Podcast, you are going to find us, and you're going to find the podcast app that you prefer or your friends prefer, and you will find a link to get to our feed. Oh, and also, if you haven't seen it, we're also on Board Game Geek, so you could go there and find our podcast as well as the entry for X Seekers of Fortune. And while you're there, if you've played X Seekers of Fortune, you might as well rate it. You know what? Rate the show, rate the game, and just, rate your life, because your life needs a rating, and you need to decide to make your life a 5 out of 5 life, just like we're a 5 out of 5 podcast. All right. Why don't we get back to the show? Because I think I have a feeling Danny was a very special guest that we've been waiting to have on for a while now. So I'm assuming Danny cooked up something really weird for something random for us. Danny, it's time for something random.
Yeah. No. This is, I wouldn't say this is weird. I would say this is a very normal thing. It's very, we're going to play a game. And this isn't a game that I came up with. This is a game that's been around for a long time. It's a game that often is played amongst friends like ourselves.
Okay.
This is supposedly a family-friendly podcast. I don't know if that's true, but Comicpalooza says it has to be, so it is. So we're going to play a game called Romance, Marry, Kill.
Okay.
Yes, love it.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to read them, and then you guys are going to take turns telling me, which ones you'd romance, which ones you'd kill, and which ones you'd marry.
I like that we had to replace one of the words with romance, but kill was still available.
Yeah, because we can't say dude.
Will,
right.
Get on it.
I would love to see like profanity filters where you bleep out with the X Seeker's X as part of the bleep, just like beep, and then just see the X pop up.
Oh, right over the mouth.
Ooh,
that's a good idea.
I think Will could arrange that. He's pretty creative.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna start easy. Number 1. Romance, marry, kill, fork, knife, spoon.
Okay.
Who's going to go first? Andy, you're the guest.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think you can probably romance the spoon because spooning is a thing.
Sure.
I would probably marry the fork. And kill the knife, because that sounds like an interesting challenge. How do you kill a knife?
Yeah.
All right.
Probably with one of those, what do they call them?
Like a pneumatic press? Yeah, hydraulic press.
Oh, my goodness.
Joel, what about you?
All right, it's going to be very similar. I'm just going to walk you through my thinking process here. Of course, you marry the fork. The fork is it's doing 90% of the work. Let's just face it, folks. That fork can do what the spoon and the knife can do in many cases, and it's the one that can do the things that the other two can't. So that fork, that's my main utensil. I'm going to be using that, and I can use it as a knife. In many cases, what else I can use to do knife functions is a spoon. I don't spread my peanut butter with a knife. I don't go in there and scrape it out with a knife. I use a spoon to take my peanut butter out, put it on the bread, and spread it around with the back. Same with butter. So you know what I don't need? I don't need that freaking knife. Get it out of here. You're dead to me, knife. But I'm going to romance that spoon a little bit. When I have cravings for peanut butter in the middle of the night, I go and get that spoonful and just nom, 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 nom.
I love it. Stretch goal. Joel romances a spoon on camera. Okay, number 2.
Does that get him points back?
He's still at -9, so we'll have to see. Number 2, Rice Krispies, Grape Nuts, and Lucky Charms.
Okay. Andy, do you want to take it?
Sure. I'd probably have to kill Lucky Charms. Just they don't really agree with my diabetes too much. Like that's a lot of pure sugar. And I never really liked the cereal bits for Lucky Charms. Like the marshmallows were the whole point.
Yeah.
And I think so. I know it was Grape Nuts. What's the third one again?
Rice Krispies.
Oh, well, you got to give it up for Rice Krispies. I would probably marry Rice Krispies, because they're very versatile. You can put them in a lot of different recipes, and you know they are not just a taste sensation but an auditory sensation. Yeah, got to get that variety. And then marry Grape Nuts. I think it's a stable partner. I don't think you have to worry about it finding someone else.
Okay. All right. I think that's accurate. I'm definitely not on the Grape Nuts train, but we'll see what Joel says.
Well, I mean, it feels like we have the same response, but for different reasons. For me, my marriage is going to be to Grape Nuts. It is a cornerstone of a diet. It is wonderful. And, while Lucky Charms has the auditory sensation, Grape Nuts has the textural sensation, and that texture being mouth-destroying, fibrous, sharp rocks, which who hasn't looked at a tasty rock and wanted to eat it? Well, hey, Grape Nuts are there for you. It's basically rocks you can eat. Yeah. Rice Krispie treats, wonderful, but wouldn't want to have a bowl of them. But when you make them, like I said, the Rice Krispie treat specifically, that is a wonderful treat. Every now and then you romance that. It's a fling. You go out to go down to the coast with it, and you come back. You go back to your wife, the Grape Nuts. But Lucky Charms, I'm sorry, that leprechaun has been getting away with this for too long. I want his treasure. I'm taking him out back, and I am finding the treasure, and he's not going to be having a good time about it. So kill Lucky Charms.
All right, there you go. Number 3, a VW Bug, a PT Cruiser, and a Geo Metro.
Oh. I don't think I've ever seen a Geo Metro, so I don't have a frame of
That's a good
reference
thing.
for that one.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that definitely.
Joel, I
a
don't
good
think
thing.
you've seen a Geo Metro either, have you?
Oh, we'll get into it. I'm letting Arcus go first.
Like the new bugs are good. I would say that's a marryable vehicle. I don't know anything about the Geo Metro, so we'll put that on the kill block and romance the PT Cruiser. Why not?
Okay.
They were super popular when I was in high school.
Yeah, it's like snagging with the popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
Joel, what is your take here?
Well, Danny, I already killed my PT Cruiser by driving that thing, or not the PT Cruiser. I've already killed my Geo Metro by driving that thing into the ground. I couldn't murder that thing any harder if I tried. I left it stranded on the side of a highway waiting for a tow truck, and it was dead to me. Now, when it comes to the other two, they're much more reputable vehicles, and you would think that, the BW Bug has gone through so many design iterations, but very clear, distinct ones. I think there's 3 different designs that you could probably evoke to your mind, and that kind of reminds me of somebody who ages like wine. Maybe somebody you dated in high school, or you thought about dating in high school, and they were really cute then, but then 20 years later, they come back into your life, and oh man, they've aged very well. And even then, they going into their older years, they've kind of gotten some elegance in doing so. So I would think that I would want to romance the VW Bug at its various times in its life and my life. Leaving the PT Cruiser to be married, I mean, it's just a stalwart of the family. You could bring a family into this world with that thing, and my God, you could take a family out of this world in that thing.
All right, number 4. Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, and SpongeBob.
SpongeBob. Instantaneously. Get him out. I don't think it's I wouldn't trust the mouse. A marriage with the mouse would be dangerous because Disney is dangerous. No matter how much you love them, they are they are a force of nature. And Bugs Bunny, I don't know, he gets up to some stuff. Probably an interesting marriage at minimum.
Okay.
I would say that this one is really tough because I would rather be ranking their duck counterparts. I'm a huge fan of Donald Daffy, and I guess Patrick would be the duck of SpongeBob. But sticking with the initial question, we got to kill the mouse. If you got Disney Plus, unsubscribe, please. Get it out of your life. You can find a way of getting access to those movies, but we don't need to be supporting
Joel,
Disney anymore.
Owl House was so good. Owl
And
House
it's canceled.
was amazing.
And they didn't they take it off? Didn't they take it off the service, or is it still there?
They cut it. I don't think it's off the service, but
Okay.
they cut the last season to 3 episodes.
Oh,
And
wow!
Amphibia was amazing, and Gravity Falls. It's some of the best animation that's come out of America.
I agree. It hurts for me to agree with you, but I still say you have to kill the mouse because it's coming for us all. If we don't kill it, it's going to kill us. But now I have to decide to marry, or who's to marry and who to romance between SpongeBob and Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny is too much of a chaotic agent, I think, for marriage. But Ladybugs is looking pretty good, so I think I'm going to romance Bugs Bunny. You know what I'm saying? It's there's something going on, some cross wires going on there.
This
so
is
that
what
leaves
you meant about the last one with the petting zoo.
Yeah.
that leaves me to marry SpongeBob, and why not? SpongeBob has a career, has hobbies, has a pineapple under the sea to take care of me at, and keeps it pretty clean in there too. He's a sponge, for crying out loud. He loves to keep it clean. So that's my answers.
Okay, we got the warm ups out of the way. Here we go.
Prepare, Danny.
Collapsed nuclear reactor core, smallpox, sulfuric acid.
I mean, I'd kill smallpox just in general.
You'd be a hero.
How could you not? And then, I don't think I'd romance sulfuric acid, but I think we could coexist.
That sounds like marriage to me.
Yeah, exactly. So that sounds like marriage. And then the nuclear reactor is depending on how short the fling is, and if you got proper protection, I suppose it's okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, Joel.
This one's a tough one because I'm not partial to any of these, but I will say that I'm probably going to marry the collapsed nuclear reactor. Let's face it, if we're going to go out, let's go out in style. Let's see what the next generation and the next, life forever will be changed. And let's see how life thrives in the collapsed nuclear reactor world. But when it comes to sulfuric acid versus smallpox, obviously, there's been some pretty rough times when people have romanced smallpox. So let's get it out of here. Let's kill the smallpox. We don't need to have those horrible things happening. Sulfuric acid, I just can't imagine what exactly is going on. I can't imagine that being a world-threatening event. Maybe I'm wrong. But I would say probably a fling with sulfuric acid. It seems like you could do some damage.
Yeah, I think you only get one shot with sulfuric acid if you're having a fling. I don't think you can do it twice.
Well, it depends on who's doing the flinging, I guess. If you're flinging sulfuric acid, then it's like Phantom of the Opera, right?
Yeah, I guess there's that. All right, Here we go. This one's a little more intellectual. The Sixth Amendment, the Seventh Amendment, or the Eighth Amendment?
Okay, I'm going to pull those up really quick. Those are part of the Bill of Rights, correct? Those are the 3 of the originals.
Yeah. Here, I'm going to just go ahead and drop this into chat for ease of
Thank you.
Of reference there for everyone.
Florigiata Danny.
And I can just give, for the people at home, we'll just give them a quick summary. So the Sixth Amendment is your right of a criminal defendant to a quick and speedy trial by an impartial jury. Mm-hmm. It is the right to be informed of the nature and cause of an accusation, the right to confront the witnesses against you, the right to have a compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in their favor, and the right to have assistance of counsel for their defense. The Seventh Amendment provides for the right to a jury trial in civil cases in federal courts where the value in controversy exceeds $20. This amendment also ensures that no fact tried by a jury will be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States according to the rules of common law.
Ooh, double jeopardy right there in the Seventh Amendment.
There you go. And then Eighth Amendment prohibits the federal law from imposing excessive bail, excessive fines, or cruel and unusual punishments. This amendment is critical safeguard to ensure that punishment for crimes is proportional to the offense committed and that methods of punishment are not too extreme or inhumane, such as being locked in a small room with 400 cats. All right. Andy, what do you got?
I would probably start by killing the Eighth Amendment.
Ooh.
I'm a big proponent of bail reform. I think that it is basically just a way to impose a tax on poor people who are accused of committing a crime without actually any actual reason for it. Like, it's just like, hey, bail. So I don't think that it should be left empty. I think that there should be something put in place that fixes the current problem, but the current version is kind of messed up. So bye-bye. I do think that you should be entitled to a jury and a speedy trial. So Sixth Amendment, totally okay with marrying that. And then I guess it means seventh is getting romanced. But hopefully it's something that, you know, like we can I can make it better. You know, I can change them. I can make them better. You know, even though it's a short fling.
Well, like always, Andy and I probably agree in terms of our decisions, but disagree in terms of our reasoning. There are people out there who, you know, and actually let me be very specific. There are people who take advantage of our system and live in high towers and, you know, don't put in their fair share and back into the system that I think cruel and unusual punishment might be necessary to set an example for the other ones out there. So let's kill the Eighth Amendment, get it out of here. And, you know, use our creative freedoms for those, like, say, those who, you know, used insider knowledge from their spouses in Congress in order to make trades in their investment portfolio before things like COVID shutdowns happened. I think
I know you're going to be spending time in a cannibal camp, Joel, but
Yeah.
you're not supposed to actually eat the rich.
Anyways,
times for those in the audio
yes.
podcast.
So, okay, so that's the Eighth Amendment. It's out of here for those reasons. Andy, your reasons were really good as well. So, you know, as we rebuild the amendment in the after time, you know, after the business has been taken care of, we'll take those into consideration.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the Sixth Amendment is the one you have to marry. It's not as sexy, but it is very important that you must have a speedy trial. Like the fact that if you didn't have that, they could just hold you, you know, in perpetuity, like for a long, you know, so long. They could just, they don't, if they didn't have to try you, they could just keep you in that limbo state. And that could include you just sitting in a jail, rotting in a jail, instead of being tried and sent to prison where you're supposed to be. So Seventh Amendment, you get to romance that, but it's cool. You know, the jury, that's 12 people. How romantic.
The Sixth Amendment is effectively legal cuddles.
Yes. All right.
Here we go. We've got three more, and we'll be done.
Oh man.
All right. Yeah, this is an endurance test. If you want, we can cut it right here. Actually.
Oh no, I'm
we don't
good.
have to go. We don't have to go all the way.
Yeah.
Unless you want to.
Bring it, buddy.
Okay.
Bring it.
All right. Number 7, Monopoly, Cards Against Humanity, and Russian Roulette.
Oh. You know, I think I could marry Russian Roulette because I'm pretty sure we can come up with a way to make that actually a better game than Monopoly.
Yeah, just combine the two, and that's a better game.
Yeah.
It'll end quicker.
I would rather have a fling with Monopoly and kill Cards Against Humanity, to be honest with you. At least Monopoly has like educational value.
Yeah.
And it's got a cool story.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, romance, Monopoly, kill Cards Against Humanity. That happily.
Okay, Joel, what about you? Are you seeing eye to eye with Andy on this one?
I think I'm maybe taking a different approach, just slightly. Let me talk through it. Maybe I can figure this out. Well, I think that who doesn't like to have a very dangerous, very troublesome, problematic even romances in their lives? You don't marry these people. Like, you shouldn't be together in the first place, but when you come together, the sparks fly and life's flash before your eyes. So I would romance Russian roulette. Just every now and then you get to a dark place in your life and you're just willing to put it all on the line just to taste that sensation of feeling. So that could be a fun time. Now, I think maybe it's a difference, so just a slight difference in our personality, who we are as people. But let me be honest. I am essentially a game that is, very well, how should I say, very cleanly designed with Helvetica font that thinks it has a sense of humor. Let's be honest. I might as well marry that person. That person's me. So Monopoly's got to go. It takes too long to set up. I hate the paper money, honestly. The saving grace of Monopoly is like the little pieces that you get to move around the board, but it's just not enough. I got to kill Monopoly because at the end of the day, I am Cards Against Humanity. I deserve it.
You're
that
the
marriage.
human version of Cards Against Humanity.
So was that?
You're the human version of Cards Against Humanity.
That's the argument I'm making right now.
I think you just got the title for your thumbnail.
All right,
we get there eventually, folks. We get there.
You should see if you can get sponsorship for Monopoly Go after, literally making a claim for Monopoly needs to go.
Yeah. Monopoly, go out of here. Get off my phone.
Yeah. That and Subway. I'm sure both those companies will be happy to sponsor us. All right, two more. Here we go. Appendix.
Okay.
Tonsils.
Okay.
Heart.
Okay. Well, I would romance the heart because that's
the
heart of romance, right? I still have my tonsils, so I think I'm in a pretty committed relationship with them. And you never said the appendix was an organ. I think it's also a useless section of books. So let's just get both of them out of there.
Okay. I hear you. I see that. Joel, what about you? Are you romancing the heart?
No. I think I have to marry the heart. I'm going to be with my heart for my entire life. And unfortunately, it's going to kill me, just like a good marriage. The tonsils versus the appendix becomes the big question. Which one do I kill? And I've been somebody who's had enough bouts of strep throat, enough bouts of sinus infections that the tonsils are. I've made my peace with getting rid of them a long time ago because it was pretty close to an option that was on the table. The appendix, someday it could stab me in the back, and just blow up on me. But what good romance doesn't have a little bit of that in it? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, last one. Here we go. Let's go out with a bang.
Wasn't it the Russian roulette one?
Okay. Dragon, alchemist, cultist.
Okay. I've been around these characters for a minute, so I want to hear your opinion. I'll go second on this one.
Oh, okay. There we go. Change it up right at the end. Let me just get a visual on them, and I'll probably sort it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think I know who I'm marrying, but we'll see.
Let me find those files.
Race to the prize right here, boys. Who gets there first?
Yeah. Do I have them in the chat, or did I ever post those for you guys, or probably not?
I presume Danny has his ways of getting the files.
Well, what's in is you can see the dragon clearly. You can get a sense of what the cultists look like, and you can see what the alchemist looks like.
Just give me a sec here. I can pull the original. Well, I mean, we can still chitty chat, or we can pause. Like if you guys need to do a quick bio break, this would be a moment.
I'll give you just a moment to pull it up, Andy.
Sure.
I have faith that you're going to.
Oh, do you guys want to talk about where you're gonna be?
Oh, that's a good.
While I'm fishing around for stuff.
Look at this guy being the producer, being a producer extraordinaire. Yeah, Danny. So where are we going to be this Memorial Day weekend? Why don't you tell the people?
Yeah, so this Memorial Day weekend we will be at our homes and just kind of enjoying being out of the chaos of Memorial Day weekend, I think.
I don't think that's right, Danny. I think we're supposed to be in Houston at the Robert R. Burleson?
No.
Do-
George
can
R.
I
Brown.
take-
George R. Brown.
the George R. Brown Center for Comicpalooza 2024, folks. Let's go. We are going to not only be there showing off X Seekers of Fortune pretty much all day, every day, from like the opening until probably around 8 to 10 o'clock at night, but we are going to be producing our first live podcast for the Megamouse Studios Super Secret Podcast in their podcasting center. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. We're going to be on a stage.
Podcast Pavilion.
Podcast Pavilion.
Friday.
I
the
don't
24th.
think I've ever done anything in a pavilion besides
Me
frolic.
neither.
Probably
You've been frolicking in a pavilion?
possibly, but we're going to be performing in a pavilion. We have a very special topic set, and I bet you if you're there in person, I have a feeling there's a chance that you could interact with us and potentially do this, be part of something random. We'll see exactly what the organizers let us do. So that's where we're going to be next up. So
5 p.m. on the 24th, to be clear.
That's
5
Friday the
p.m.
24th. Yes.
Friday the 24th.
But if you can make it Saturday or Sunday, you can definitely come by and play X Seekers of Fortune. We'll be up in the gaming room. You can't miss us. We're going to have a big old table set up, and we're going to be ready to show you how to play the game if you haven't already.
Perfect. Accurate.
All right. Oh, here we go. So here we go. Andy got cards for me to see. So I'm going to be rating. Talk about 8 to rate. Look at all these. I should be rating all of them.
Well, there'd be 12.
Okay. I see the dragon here.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to move off the dragon. Where's the cultist? Oh, there they are.
Cultists are right next to the alchemist, so up and over. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. And the alchemist up and over.
Is adjacent.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I'm trying to base this not only on the pictures, but my understanding. Alchemist, every now and then you get a love potion. Every now and then you get a maybe gold. Turn anything into gold. What wonderful idea. But most of the time you get your dang lab blown up. They are nuisances to society. I'd rather my clerics be making my potions. Thank you very much. Get that alchemist out of here. I'm killing the alchemist. The cult, you have sometimes you have like really dark periods in your life, and that's when a romance really comes in. And when it comes to a cult, hey, as long as you don't drink the Kool-Aid, you can get out at any time. It's a fun story to have under your belt. It's so, it could be eye-opening. You're going to learn something. You might not need to be learning what they're teaching you, but you're going to learn something. So I'm going to romance the cult. And of course, look at the dragon. That dragon's going to take care of you. It's going to keep you warm at night. And boy, he has some riches to go around. Mr. Dragon. Well, what you doing later? I could be free for the rest of my life if you want. Marry the dragon.
Okay.
All right. And now, Andy.
Yeah. We're close. Like it's a close match. I definitely think you should marry the dragon. The whole reason that the inn for that is called the Jaded Dragon is because the dragon was left at the altar.
Aww.
Yeah, it's a touching and tragic story. But that's also why he's not a bad dude. But yeah, he good partner, good marriage material. Now he's reformed. There was a time when he wasn't. I would say, I would argue to kill the cultists. They tend to get up to a lot of problems, and they tend to do that the more that they're ignored. And I think you could probably have some fun with an alchemist.
There you go.
I'm sure some of the things that they're concocting. Yeah,
I'm with Joel on this one. I would definitely be romancing those cultists because I'm getting real eyes wide shut vibes here. That's it. That was something random this week. Andy, thank you so much for playing along. This is not the kind of game that you can win, but you do win because Joel's already at -9 points. So
I came up from behind and I still lost.
the insult to injury is when he realizes that I've been keeping track of his score in Aerial.
Not Papyrus?
I actually have a soft spot in my heart for Papyrus. Ariel is more of a offender to me. But of course, Comic Sans. Yeah, we could have done. I'm surprised you didn't make one of these. The 3 most dreaded fonts, Danny.
Yeah, I should have, but it didn't occur to me, and I already had 9, which is already pushing it for something random. So
So
Yeah,
wait, let me just make one last little thing clear for my own purposes.
yes.
You want to kill the mouse because you hate the live action remakes and you have a problem with Ariel. Joel, do you have something you need to get off your chest? Like, is there?
Good one. I just want to be clear. I love Ariel, the mermaid. Little Mermaid was the first movie I ever saw in theaters. It was magical. It changed my life. My mother, thank you so much for taking me out to that one. Not that Ariel, but yeah, it's because such a horrible font got the name of such a beautiful young mermaid with such a wonderful voice.
Okay.
They should have called the font Ursula. All right. All right, Andy. I always like to ask, though, now that we're wrapping up the show, where do you want to be found? Where can the people find you online?
So the easiest way to find me is Game Changing Designs, which you can find at gamechangingdesigns.com. We do have a link to our TikTok channel for as long as TikTok's around. That's the social media platform I'm going to stick with because I'm a Twitter refugee, dang it. So, and we do have a Facebook page. We don't update on there as often right now, but we will probably be doing that more. And reach out. We have a contact form on our website. So if you are interested in getting like a promo copy, or if you have questions and want them answered, that's the easiest way to get to us. It's a direct line of communication. And gamechangingdesigns.com is going to be getting upgraded and iterated on as we get information on what we're supposed to do with that from our distributor. But that'll also be like where you can get Inns and Outcasts. Also, insandoutcasts.com will take you to the Inns and Outcasts page on our website. So,
Love it.
Excellent. Danny, we already talked about where you could find us next, but why don't you go ahead and tell the audience, like, if they're into the show, into the podcast, or X Seekers of Fortune, where can they go to find some more information? What would be most beneficial to us right now?
Yep. So obviously, if you're listening to the show, you probably already on one of these platforms, but we have Megamoth Studios on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or any of the other podcatchers. On TikTok, we are at Megamoth Studios. There's also at X Seekers. We just set this one up. I don't actually remember what we set up on TikTok, so you can find that if you search X Seekers of Fortune, though, I'm sure. On Instagram, we are at X_Seekers_of_Fortune. And on Facebook, we're X Seekers of Fortune as well. We also have Megamoth Studios pages on both of those. You can search Megamoth Studios on either platform and find us. We're on Board Game Geek. As Joel mentioned, if you care and you've played the game, please come give us a rating, your comments, whatever they may be. Is there anywhere else they can find us, Joel? I mean, xseekersoffortune.com, megamothstudios.com.
Did you say Kickstarter? If you go
Kickstarter, I guess that's probably the thing I should be saying the most. June 4th, 2024, we are going live with X Seekers of Fortune, the first installment, the base game. And very excited to get this game in people's hands. We are 100% human art. And if that is something that interests you or is important to you, please come take a look. If it's your jam, we'd love to have you be part of our gaming community. It is full of wonderful people like Andy. So, if you're so inclined, please consider supporting us on Kickstarter.
100%. Yeah. And you can go to Kickstarter right now and press the follow button. That means a lot to us. Knowing like what kind of interest we have going into that first day is really going to gauge how we attack the problem in the marketing. So thank you so much for mentioning all those, Danny. And I do want to say, if you're a fan of us on TikTok, as of right now, Danny has had a post that's gone quasi-viral. We'd highly recommend you checking out, but we're happy to say it is inching its way up to 6,000 views, and it has gained us over, I want to say, nearly 40 followers.
Nice.
Yeah, because we're at 1521 right now.
Yeah.
TikTok is a great place to find us, and we do post. Danny posts fire there frequently.
I would contest the claim that 6,000 views is viral, but we'll leave that alone.
I didn't say viral. I just said you post fire.
Will can replay the tape. We'll replay the moment here in a like a classic replay thing in slow motion. Like have Joel be like, that'd be great. I appreciate that.
I will say I found you guys because of TikTok, because in the early bits when you guys were still testing before, I think Comicpalooza, Joel was you had videos of Joel wearing the Indiana Jones hat. And he would be going like into stores like, should I wear the hat or should I wear this dealer visor? And I was like, you should use both. And that was like the first time that I commented on one of your videos.
That's like our second video ever, I think.
Right. Like that's when you guys got on my radar. I was like,
that shows you how good that TikTok algorithm is. If Andy saw that as like our second video ever. Anyways, thank you so much, Andy, for that and for being part of the show. So that's it for the Megamoth Studios Super Secret Podcast for this week. I would love to thank our guest, Andy, and my co-host, Danny. I have been Joel, reminding you that you must start somewhere, so why not here? Thanks for listening. Theme music by James Hilden, produced and edited by William Wymore. Viral.